George Parr, you're a senior executive of one of the big five high street banks.
I am, yes.
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 Now, personal debt is becoming a more and more serious problem in this country.
Yeah, not for me. I'm laughing all the way to the bank. Sorry, I'm being insensitive there. Sorry.
Debt in the UK has totaled now more than £1 trillion.
Really? That's
Yes.
goodness, that's a lot.
Yes. Some people have thought that this situation has arisen because banks like your own are willing to lend people money that they're really unable to pay back.
Well, there's an awful lot of misunderstanding, you see, about this. Because the banks know their customers. Well, they have to. It's a personal service. And we have discovered that the people who run into financial difficulties, it all follows a definite pattern. They're the people who borrow month in and month out.
Yes.
Possibly because most of them are on very modest incomes. They never pay off their credit cards in full. They incur very high interest charges. They incur extra charges because they exceed their credit limits. And generally speaking, they handle their financial affairs so badly, they're always paying penalty charges.
I see. And these must be your very worst customers.
Oh, no, these are the customers every bank is desperate to keep. Because they're the ones we make the money out of. I mean, who do you think they're paying these charges to?
But don't you have a duty of care for your customers?
Sorry, duty of what? Sorry, I'm not... not familiar with the phrase, sorry.
A duty of care.
Care.
C-A-R-E.
Care, no, you've got me.
Look, I mean, shouldn't you be talking to them about their financial situation and well, warning them about becoming overstretched?
Well, we do. We invite them into the bank for what we call a financial health check.
And what is that?
That's where they come into the bank and we try and sell them something.
Sell them what?
Well, anything, insurance, remortgaging, another loan.
Is that inappropriate?
But you mustn't forget that these are desperate people.
Yes, your customers are.
No, the people who work for the bank are desperate people. Because we put such stringent sales targets on them that they really see that we don't pay them very much, so they really rely on their sales bonuses to make a decent living. And in any case, I mean, surely the customer must take financial decisions for themselves. They must take responsibility. I mean, we say to them, you take out this extra loan, you can easily afford it. And what they should say is, are you mad? No, we can't. And we can't say it for them. So they have to say, we have a dialogue going, a dialogue which always ends with us saying, don't worry, if you get into financial trouble, we'll lend you the money.
Yes, I suppose you wouldn't expect a heroin dealer to say to his client, if I were you, I wouldn't buy any more of this stuff because it's only going to land you in trouble.
That's very good, yes, very good. Heroin dealer, I must remember that, yes. That's a very good illustration.
But some of these people are so desperately in debt that they're driven to suicide.
Well, yes, that's true.
But
yes.
Doesn't that worry you?
Well,
I mean, the agonies of their family?
Of course it worries us, but the banks suffer too, you know. I mean, for the family, they may lose the father, but we lose an income stream.
But there must be rules.
Rules?
Rules?
Yes.
Do you know that word?
Yes, I do, yes.
Yes, I thought this whole area was regulated by the FSA, the Financial Services Authority.
The Financial Services Authority regulates every aspect of the financial sector, with one exception, unsecured lending by banks. That is covered by the Banking Code of Practice.
And what's that?
That is a system of voluntary self-regulation operated by the banks themselves.
I see. What is voluntary self-regulation?
What does it mean?
Yes.
Nothing. Absolutely nothing. That's the good thing about it.
So you don't think that the government has any role at all in this matter?
Well, I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say that. No, I can foresee a situation possibly in the future where personal debt gets so completely out of control that the banks incur unsustainable losses, in which case I would expect that the government would step in and pay us the money.
But why should the government bail out the banks?
Well, because a healthy banking system is necessary for a healthy economy. And, you know, the big five banks, we're on the edge of disaster all the time. I mean, the five high street banks only made £33 billion profit last year. So we think the government owe it to us.
Owe it to you in what sense?
Well, because what's kept the British economy booming in the last few years, as you think from the rest of Europe where it's stagnating, what's kept our economy booming has been the propensity for British people to borrow huge sums of money and spend it.
So you're going to go on lending these enormous amounts of money to people?
I don't see why not. I mean, what sort of people do we want to encourage in society? Let's face it. I mean, do we want the single mother who never goes into debt, who saves up to buy children a pair of shoes? No, that's one of nature's losers. We want people in a bit of get up and go, of the entrepreneurial flair, people who say, I want a cash injection to some capital to finance a 2-week holiday in the Costa Brava.
Well, George Parr, thank you very much.
Oh, sure. I must say, it is so much nicer sitting here having a civilised conversation rather than next door watching bloody Big Brother.
It's everywhere at the moment. It's disgusting. It's taken over everything. I mean, did you see the papers today? No. Just full of that Chinese bloke vomiting over the lesbian. It's everywhere. Oh, I think so. It
Probably
to
not.
me.
Yeah. And I gather now we're promised diarrhea.
Oh, please don't.
Well, apparently the figures have taken a dip. Yeah, and Endemol thinks that diarrhea might pep it up a bit.
You know, it pretends to be real, but it isn't. It's just a complete piece of trivia on the screen, and that is now replacing normal human contact and conversation, isn't it?
What's that?
What?
Oh, look, I'm on eBay, and I'm bidding for these fantastic, wonderful 80s Italian cut-out suede pixie boots. Oh, somebody's bid $180.
Can I just ask about the Big Brother? This one that we're seeing at the moment, is it a celebrity one, or is it the ordinary?
It wouldn't make any difference to me. I've never heard of any of the celebrities anyway. I've never the faintest idea who they are, these people. The thing is, whoever they are, celebrities or ordinary people, as far as I can see, the reason they get on is because they have extreme views.
Yes.
What should happen is that they shouldn't be on television at all. They should all be painlessly put to sleep.
Yes.
So that they don't exist
Yes,
anymore.
because they're just disgusting and grotesque. But there's one good thing about them being so grotesque. I mean, it does make you feel better about yourself when you watch them, doesn't it? I mean, it's like at school, I used to go around with the ugliest girl in the class to make myself feel better, but I don't need to do that now. I'm much more centred.
You're very centred. And think of how much more centred you're going to be when you get those pixie boots.
Oh, no, they're not moving, just 5 minutes to go.
I must say that we should be grateful to Big Brother and Channel 4 for one thing, which is for kick-starting this debate about racism in British society.
That is such a good point. I never realised that Britain was such a racist society until I saw Big Brother.
Until I saw Big Brother. No, I don't know either.
The only way you'd find out, you know, that black people were as alienated as they are was by talking to black people, and I never do talk to black people.
It does have some function, I suppose, Big Brother, because, you know, we are now discovering that there is this kind of racism without ever having to talk to a black person.
Yes. I would never experience any sort of racism around here, living around here, would you? No.
Well, for a very simple reason, that they couldn't afford to live right here.
And they never will be able to afford to live
they
right
won't.
here.
And there is a reason for that. And the reason is that they're too lazy.
Yes.
Too lazy to earn the money to buy a place like
Absolutely. That's it, I mean, it's in their blood.
Yes.
I know, but you know, in fairness, though, I have to point out that there are other things, though, that many other things that are just more important to them.
Well,
Like what?
Well, like,
what?
Rhythm?
yes,
Yes.
colourful clothing.
Bright colours.
Yeah, they love bright
big
colours.
hat.
enormous trainers.
Inventive handshakes.
The handshakes, yeah.
inventive handshake, yes.
I think the thing that we have to do really is to move away from these awful stereotypes
Exactly.
that people have.
And you see, the problem of the stereotypes cut both ways. Because, you know, black people have a stereotype version of what they think white middle-class people do. I mean, they think we sit in our nice dining rooms being prejudiced about it.
I mean, nothing could be further from the truth.
And I think, you know, it gives a very skewed version of life in Britain.
Yes,
you know, for
exactly.
people, if they're watching Big Brother, they think that that's what it's like.
Yeah.
No, you know, if you ask me, they should put cameras somewhere like here, so that then they can observe normal behaving.
Just going back to Big Brother for a moment, you know, obviously I don't watch it, but you know, I read all about the last kerfuffle. You know, and I thought
Appalling.
it was absolutely despicable the way they treated Sherpa Tenzing.
Yes.
You know, they kept calling him Sherpa Poppadom.
Yeah.
You know, I know he's getting on, but after all, he has climbed up Everest. You know, they'd be polite to him.
Do you know what? I think I'm just going to have a little peep at Big Brother because it was getting a little bit tense last night.
Oh, God. You know, she claims she hates it. But she's actually completely hooked on it.
I love your wife very much, as you know, but I mean, I must say that this is pretty pathetic, isn't it, really?
The fact is, what I'm concerned about it is the way people seem to be willing to just expose their foibles, their awful, grotesque foibles on television, and I won't collude in it. Watch out for me.
Listen, the Romanian lesbian is strangling the man with one leg.
Really?
Oh, that's not serious.
Why, you are a senior official at the Department of Health.
Yes, I am.
Yes, you must be rather disturbed at these huge deficits the NHS seems to be running up. I mean, the hospital trust alone is supposed to be £800 million in the red, is that right?
Well, we're not complacent.
Aren't you? No.
No, and we've instructed all hospital trusts to start getting rid of their debts immediately.
Yes, and one way of doing that, which we've heard about this week, is that there are going to be new arrangements for people with heart disease and asthma, isn't that right?
Yes. In the old system, people who had chronic heart disease, whenever things got really bad,
Yes.
They went to hospital.
Yes.
Now they won't.
No.
And this is much better for the patient.
Is it? Yes.
Because you don't want to feel really bad and be in hospital at the same time. No, it's just too depressing.
Depressing, yes. And this will save apparently £400 million a year, is that right?
It's not about the money.
Isn't it? What's it about then?
Yes. Well, it's a bit about the money.
It's a bit.
Yes, but we have insisted that the trusts do nothing that would affect the quality of services to patients.
No, but the trusts are already starting to cancel operations, to cut down staff, to close down wards, and even close down entire hospitals.
Yes, but that doesn't affect the quality of services to patients.
Doesn't it?
No, far from it. In some cases, it improves it.
Does it?
Oh, yes. Let me give you an example. MRSA.
Yes. The superbug,
The
yes.
superbug. Yes. Now, we've highlighted the dangers of MRSA, but people have chosen to ignore it. I mean, I don't know what's wrong with them. They know how dangerous hospitals are, and yet they insist on going there.
Yes.
But, you know, if you close down a hospital, you dramatically reduce the chances of you catching that infection.
But you can't, of course, close down every hospital in the country.
No, of course not.
No.
No, what we're trying to do is to revolutionize the NHS
Yes.
by putting it on a market footing.
Yeah, so hospitals have to compete with each other. Is that
Yes, because competition drives up
drives
standards.
up standards? Yes, but I mean, do people actually want that? I mean, surely what people want is to have a local hospital near to them, which is roughly as good as any hospital in the country.
Well, they can't have it. No, it's too expensive.
Yes. What can they have instead?
Choice.
Choice. What?
You see,
What exactly? What does that mean? Choice.
choice, what does it mean? It
Yes.
means that you don't have to go to one hospital. You can choose between 4. Now, supposing I've cut off my foot with a lawnmower.
Yes.
Now, the first thing I'd think of is where can I get this done in a way that suits me best, but doesn't impose an excessive burden on the public purse? And should I consider having it done in Hungary?
So you want to move away from one size fits all?
Yes, we're moving towards 10 sizes fits nobody.
And under your new arrangements, some treatments will be given by private companies.
Yes, and the reason for this is that the private sector is far more efficient than the NHS
It is,
and
yes.
much cheaper.
Yes. How much cheaper?
They charge 11% more than the NHS for doing the same operation.
Yes. That's not cheaper. That's more expensive.
But you've got to take it in context.
Yes. Yes.
I
Sorry,
mean, these
what-
people have their shareholders to pay,
Oh, yeah.
don't they? I mean, they're not in it for the good of their health, or anybody else's, for that matter. And it's even worse, you see, with mental illness.
Well, I was going to ask you about mental
Yes,
illness.
that's the worst thing of all.
Yes.
I mean, if these people with mental illnesses thought for more than a minute about it,
Yeah.
I mean, they would realise what a burden they are on the public purse.
Yes.
I mean, mental illness has nothing to recommend it, I assure you.
Yes, you would know.
I would know.
Yes.
Yes. It just goes on and on and on and on without any rhyme or reason. And the patients don't enjoy having it, and the medical staff don't enjoy treating it. And, you know, if you have mental illness and you're also geriatric, I mean, there's no excuse for that. I mean, that quite literally is the economics of the madhouse.
Yes. But the NHS itself is starting to charge now, isn't it, for certain things? I mean,
Yes.
I think of giving an example. The Queen Charlotte's and Chelsea Hospital in London is offering a one-to-one midwife service for £4,000.
Yes, that's true.
Yes, but a one-to-one midwife service is supposed to be standard procedure.
Yes, but you see, what we're moving towards in the health service is something akin to the aeroplane industry.
The aeroplane industry.
Yes. You see, there will be a club class NHS
Yeah.
where you will pay extra
Yeah,
for something like a midwife, and the rest of the hospitals will be no frills.
no frills hospital.
No food,
Well, that's an advantage, perhaps.
yes, no anaesthetics,
No.
just cheap and cheerful.
Yes. What cheap, anyway. Are there any other advantages to
Yes, of
competition,
course.
being in competition?
Far more jobs will be created.
You know what, nurses and doctors.
Oh, no. No, we're going to get rid of those.
Yes.
No, I was thinking of jobs in marketing, consultancy, in PR, in advertising agencies, and a lot of money will be going to companies producing glossy brochures.
Which the hospitals will need because they're
of course,
competing with each
desperately
other.
need.
Aren't they?
Yes, absolutely. And also the public likes it.
Well, yes.
I mean, they can't get enough of advertisements coming through the door. They do get rather bored by having so many that are for double glazing and credit cards.
Yes.
And what they really want is a full-colour brochure on urinary tract infection. Dropping on their mats.
On their mats, yes.
Yes.
And so your feeling is that if you institute all these measures, then you will you'll see these deficits disappear.
Well, in time, yes. Although we're quite keen on the deficits.
You're keen on them?
Yes,
What's
yes.
keen on?
Well, at the moment, they're rather useful.
Are they?
Because if we can persuade people that the NHS is wasting millions of pounds of public money, then they will accept that the only answer is privatisation.
Yeah. Good, well, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Extraordinary.
Oh, God.
North Harley Street, desperately trying to find a taxi, as we know, impossible. Man comes over to me, right, and he says, "Can you tell me the way to the nearest Friends meeting house?" Well, obviously, I knew he was a mugger, so I attempted to hit him. I started screaming, madly, wildly, and then he says, "Please, please, calm down, because I just want to sit in silence and pray." And then, of course, obviously, he'd been released from a mental institution and had a knife.
Lunatic.
And so I smashed him with my Prada handbag, which luckily this season has got a very, very thick clasp, so it really hurt him. On the floor, this wonderful young man from across the road comes flying over, kicks him down onto the ground. That's it, thank God.
Well, thank goodness it ended happily.
How do you know that he wasn't a Quaker? How do you know?
How do I know he wasn't a Quaker? I mean, look, I was dressed head to foot in Alexander McQueen. I stuck out like a sore thumb
But
like
this
that.
is, excuse me, this is a parable for our time,
Indeed.
isn't it?
Indeed.
It's you know, you can't walk in well, we're
Anywhere.
in North Oxford
North
Street,
Oxford
Bond Street,
Bond Street, anywhere.
without being attacked by muggers. And the
Madness.
reason is this stupid policy was care in the community.
Exactly.
They let out all the lunatics
Yes.
from the asylums,
Yes.
and now they're wandering the street
Wandering
and
around,
attacking you.
attacking people. You see, in the old days, they used to have lunatics together
Yes,
yes,
in the
yes.
asylum, and they
In the
preferred it.
asylums.
They preferred it because
They
they
can't
had
handle
common
being out of
interests.
doors.
That's
Yes.
right, and you knew where you were. They were
I'm a
there.
lunatic, you're a lunatic, we
That's
can all
right.
be lunatics
That's right.
together.
Yes, we can talk about lunacy.
That's a common interest for them. I mean, we know my mother, as you know, is
Yes.
stark raving mad, isn't she? Now, she's not dangerous. We have had, at times, had to put her into a more secure
Asylum.
unit, you know, or whatever.
She's not dangerous. I mean, are you?
Well, she's just mad. I mean, it's a sort of religious, pseudo-religious thing, perhaps. I don't know. But she
Yes.
believes that Jesus lives in her hot water bottle. And most of the time he stays there. And she's fine, isn't
Yes.
she? But when he gets out,
But
you've
it's
just got to
ridiculous.
have professional help.
I mean,
That's
I
exactly.
don't mind paying my taxes to keep lunatics in lunatic asylums.
Exactly.
That's why they're called lunatic asylums.
Have been for centuries.
But I mean, the police. You know, the police have said that people, I suppose, people like us, shouldn't get dressed up in expensive clothes because then we make ourselves a target for.
Well, I
we should dress.
disagree.
What is
In
the
one way,
country
because
coming to?
you know, should you be punished for doing well? That's wrong. But there is something in the Maoist approach, really, isn't there? You know, that we should all dress the same, dress plainly. So is there real egotism in life? And you know, no, it's a lesson from nature. You know this. Look at the bees.
The bees.
They live together in harmony. They're all the same. You don't get one of them saying to the other, "Oh, your proboscis is bigger than mine. I'm a little jealous," and they just get on with life.
Mary, I couldn't disagree with you more. I mean, what is the point of everybody looking the same? You know, I like standing out. I like dressing
you
up. I mean,
do
look
stand
at
out,
the
yes.
effort that I've made for this evening supper, for example, and we've known each other for years and years and years. But I've made a big effort.
Yeah.
In a way, that's a compliment.
Yes.
I didn't realise you had, actually. But it's beautiful.
I mean, there's another argument against this business of deliberately dressing shabbily to put off migrants, and that is that a lot of crime in this country is poor people against poor people.
Yes.
You know? So if you're wearing broken down trainers, you could still be mugged for your broken down trainers.
That's right, yeah. A lot of black on black violence.
It is, that's right.
Well, it
That's
stopped me
absolutely right.
blacking up when I go out. I don't do it anymore. I mean, you feel that you should be allowed, as you must be allowed, I think, to protect yourself, your property.
Yes, you've got an interest in this,
I
don't
do.
you?
Well, yes, I've been taking self-defence
Have
classes
you?
on Wednesdays. Yeah.
Have you?
And you know, you don't need to knock somebody down anymore. They teach you how to immobilise people, and it's a much more effective way of dealing with being beaten. Oh, it's wonderful. I can show
Well,
you.
yes,
I can show you when I shoot.
No, do it too, Matthew.
No,
because
no.
You won't be a spoilsport. Yes, go on, Mary.
I just think the whole thing
You
is
won't
ridiculous.
believe it.
You won't. I'd love to see.
Look, just look at my hand, and there we go. It's wonderful, isn't it? It's just a little Vulcan grip.
It's fantastic.
It is, yes. Yeah.
Good.
Oh, well, I'm going to
last
come to
Wednesday.
these classes with you, Mary, because I could abuse that on the Quaker mugger.
Yes.
I mean, do they teach you how to break people's legs?
No, not yet.
No, but I think
Might
that
not
one
be.
ought to have more rigorous methods
Yes.
of defending oneself
Yes.
as an Englishman's
Yes.
right
Yes.
is to do so.
Yes.
And I think one should be able to do it with guns. Because guns are quick,
Simple.
they're lethal,
Yeah.
and they're quite...
Fatal.
Yes. Well, I
that's
think
right.
it's quite, the speed is quite humane, but I do have to say, and we've argued about this before, you're not saying that everybody should be going around toting guns.
Of course I'm not. That would be absolutely absurd.
But then, who is allowed? How do you define who is allowed?
You are allowed to carry a gun and shoot people if you're deemed responsible. How are you deemed responsible? There will have to be an income threshold.
Of course.
So that if you pay tax at I mean 40%,
40%, then you can have a gun.
you should be given a gun,
Exactly.
and you should be
To defend yourself.
able to defend yourself.
I agree with you
Absolutely.
so entirely, but I think there should also be legislation. It's not just violent crimes you can defend yourself and shoot people. For example, I would like to shoot those young people standing in Tottenham Court Road who mug you and force you to give your direct debit details so that you are now, are sponsoring somebody's kidney donation. Now, I
Very
think
vexing.
they should be shot.
Yes.
They would be the first.
I know,
That
I
should
know.
be legislated against.
Is Matthew all right, do you think?
Oh yeah, he's not dead or anything.
Should you do something to...
Oh yes, there is another hold to bring him around, but we're not
Oh, that's
learning
fine.
that till next Wednesday. So.
No.
Don't worry about it.
Is it okay?
It's all right. No, it's
I
absolutely
can do
fine.
it then.
Sir George Parr, you are an admiral.
I am an admiral. And I wear an admiral's hat.
Yes. How many admirals are there in the Royal Navy?
There are 46 admirals and 88 commodores.
And how many ships?
Surface fleet 25.
That's rather a lot of admirals.
It is a lot of admirals, but you must remember that the modern Navy is very highly technologically advanced. For example, we have just ordered 2 new aircraft carriers, which will be the largest ships ever to be sailed by the Royal Navy in its entire history.
Yes. Now, these are the HMS Prince of Wales
Yes, that's right.
and the HMS Camilla Parker Bowles.
No, that was the original idea. But the Queen,
Who's going to be launching them,
who will be
presumably?
launching them, said she couldn't really bring herself to say, "I named this ship Camilla Parker Bowles. May God bless her and all who sail in her." So it's going to be called HMS Queen Elizabeth.
I see. And how much will they cost?
£3.9 billion, and they come into service in 2014 and 2016.
And what are they for?
They each weigh 65,000 tons.
Well, that's very heavy,
It
isn't
is
it?
very heavy, yes.
And what are they for?
And they are 6 meters higher than Nelson's Column.
And what are they for?
And the flight decks have room for 49 tennis courts, and the hangars are the size of 12 Olympic-sized swimming pools. And you're probably going to want to ask me, what are they for?
Well, yes. Yes.
Well, I think I can do no better than choose the words of the Defence Secretary, Des Brown, who said these ships will ensure that we can increase our strategic effort around the world.
Yes. And how do these huge and enormously expensive aircraft carriers actually operate?
Well, an aircraft carrier, as its name implies, carries aircraft.
Yes. And what sort of aircraft?
Well, I'm sorry you asked the question, because at the moment we can afford to either have the carriers or the aircraft, but not both.
Doesn't that present some difficulty?
It does present some... I mean, I'm sure we'll find a way around it.
How?
Taxation is will probably do it. Because we have actually chosen an aircraft to go into these carriers. It is the Joint Strike Fighter, the F-35B, which we are buying from the Americans.
And you've chosen this aeroplane because it's obviously the right...
No, the right kind, very much,
Yes.
yeah, absolutely the right kind, yes. It's what's called a STOVL aircraft, a short takeoff and vertical landing aircraft, and it's been in development for 15 years.
Oh, so it must perform perfectly.
I haven't got the faintest idea, because it's not ready yet.
Oh, I see. Why is that?
Well, there have been problems with it.
Such as?
Well, on takeoff, it generates 500 degrees Celsius of heat underneath it, which is enough to destroy the flight deck of any known aircraft carrier. The jet draft is 70 or 80 miles an hour, which on a ship going already at 30 knots means a wind the force of a hurricane will be blowing across the flight deck, thus blowing anybody who's not already fried into the sea.
So, why are we buying these aircraft for this aircraft carrier which is costing billions already?
Because we've only just found out about these problems, and in any case, by the time this aircraft comes into our service, if it ever does, I shall be long retired, as indeed will all my colleagues, and so it'll be somebody else's problem.
So we've actually ordered these things, have we? I mean,
Yes.
couldn't we have got the aircraft from somewhere else?
Oh, we must remember that America is our greatest ally, but they have actually stipulated in the agreement to buy this plane that we can't use it outside the United Kingdom.
Won't that somewhat limit its usefulness?
Possibly, but it will come in very handy if we have any trouble with the Scottish nationalists.
Yes, so the likelihood is that when these aircraft carriers come into service in 2014,
Yes.
they're going to have to spend the first 6 or 7 years of their service going around the oceans without any aircraft.
Without any aircraft on them, yes. Well, we could put the Harrier into it, the plane which we use on our present aircraft carriers.
Yes, of course, a very tried and trusted
Very, very tried
aeroplane.
and trusted, yes. It first came into service in 1969. But it's a very good piece of kit, provided you don't use it against a country which has its own air force.
So we need to find an enemy that doesn't have an air.
An air force, ideally,
I
yes.
see.
Yes.
Well, I know. What about the Taliban?
The Taliban, absolutely ideal enemies
Yes.
for the Harrier, yes.
The only problem is that Afghanistan is about 1,200 miles from the nearest sea.
Yes.
Isn't it? And what is the range of the Harrier?
400 miles.
But hasn't it been made clear that what our forces, the British forces, need are helicopters, armoured vehicles, and lots and lots and lots of soldiers?
Yes, but these things aren't as sexy as aircraft carriers. And in any case, I mean, you wouldn't get one Olympic-sized swimming pool into a helicopter. Whereas, as I've said, you can get 12 Olympic-sized swimming pools into one of these aircraft carrier hangars, particularly if there are no aircraft taking up the route.
I don't want to be unhelpful, but,
No.
I mean, what is the point of having 12 Olympic-sized swimming pools in an aircraft
What is
carrier?
the point? Well, the point is you could have the Olympics there. I mean, admittedly, by the time the carriers come into service, it'll be 4 years after the Olympics is finished. But that only assumes that the Olympics will take place on time, which is not very likely.
But even if the Olympics are 4 years behind schedule, which is quite possible,
yes.
it's also possible, surely, that the aircraft carriers will be behind schedule.
Yes, very likely indeed. But then this is Britain.
Sir George, thank you very much.
Not at all.
Do you know what I miss most about the 50s?
Sex?
No, I was thinking of, you know, those AA patrolmen. The motorcycle and the cycle. And they'd stand by the side of the road, and if they saw your car had an AA badge on it, they'd salute you.
That's right. So the AA, wasn't that bought up by one of those big equity firms for
Private
like
equity.
3 billion?
Yes. So now they just go, It's very peculiar because It's as though suddenly there's been a group of people suddenly appear from nowhere who seem to have most of the money in the world.
Have everything.
Bonus
And the
people.
rest of us leaving us far, far, far behind.
What makes me really furious, I can't stand it. I really can't, because I used to think of myself as belonging to, you know, the elite, at the top of the tree. And our house is worth $1 million or so. But I mean, that's nothing.
Nothing.
No.
In fact,
Embarrassing.
an estate agent would sneer at you.
They would.
You show them the house. Yeah, laugh into your face.
And what I hate is that when you think of the money that we've spent in, you know, interior decorators and building the ha-ha and all that, and the ha-ha. You know, but the point of this is to say that the upshot with all these people is that we might as well be living in a two-bed terraced house in bloody Rotherham.
Yeah,
Exactly. No, because the super rich are making our lives, ordinary people's lives, an absolute nightmare. I mean, do you know, I was reading there's a worldwide shortage of Botox. Really? Because Abramovich and all those rich gangster men, they bought it all up for their wags. I mean, this is really worrying, because if it carries on like this, my face is going to look like the Grand Canyon from space. Very bad news.
In a funny way, it's not the Abramoviches of this world I object to, because I mean, that's what you expect from a Russian gangster.
Yes, well, yes.
What
yes.
it is,
Gangsters.
British super rich. There shouldn't be
There shouldn't be
British.
any British spirit.
vulgar.
It's an oxymoron. It's wrong.
You know, somebody's lent them billions. They use the billions to buy something, and then they sell it, and they make more billions.
Just the billions beget billions, don't
Yes,
they?
and it's our pension funds that they're spending. And the most unfair thing about it, you know, is that they have a lifestyle which, you know, is completely beyond our reach.
And you put your finger on it, because it used to be a consolation that I thought nobody could ever take away from me, was the fact that I could look down on people.
Oh, yeah.
And I do. Look down on almost everybody. Oh, I did.
Yeah, because now somebody's looking down on you.
That's the
Well, yes, it is unacceptable. It's and reprehensible.
morally.
Morally.
Morally reprehensible. I mean, it's as bad as, you know, an 84-year-old woman living in a rat-infested flat somewhere with the water running down the walls and not being able to turn on the electric car.
Yes.
We are in that.
We are. If you're just the same, you know, we are.
Yes,
That's where we are.
That's exactly where we are. I mean, because they keep on going on about social mobility and the divide between the rich and the poor, when really all it boils down to is they just want to get people out of these hovelly bad housing estates.
Yes, and get the children out of the cycle of deprivation.
Yeah, but what about my deprivation? What about my deprivation? We're suffering from that.
We've been
I can't
neglected.
afford to bid £8 million for Damien Hirst's in diamond-encrusted skull.
And we're constantly being told, I mean, we the middle class, constantly being told that we must share out the opportunity, we mustn't get in the way
With
of
equity.
the working class and their aspirations, fulfilling their aspirations
They
to
don't
better
have-
themselves.
They don't want. They don't want to better themselves.
They never have. They never.
Their aspiration is to win the lottery.
Absolutely. Or to swindle disability benefits so they can buy another DVD player.
Absolutely.
So they want. No, what we should do, we should show them that we mean business and hit them where it really hurts
By
them.
doing what?
Well, we can break into their mansions for a start off and pee on their carpets and
That's a very
And build up from there.
Build up from
you
there.
know, yeah, solids, whatever.
stuff on
very
their
good
Burne
first
Joneses.
Yeah.
yes. I'd pee on the carpet.
Yes.
I mean, I think that is a cause worth fighting for, and I can devote the rest of my life. Yes, absolutely.
It's a start. It's a start, and we have to do something.
Goldfarb, you are a psychiatrist.
I am.
Yes, and you have the great privilege of having been appointed the official psychiatrist to the Labour Party.
Yes, but of course it's well known that in the last few weeks there has been in the Labour Party an outbreak of what we psychiatrists call lunacy.
Lunacy. Yes.
Lunacy, yes. It's
a technical term.
It's a technical term, yes. It describes the condition where the patient has lost all contact with reality.
Is it serious?
It can be. And it can be very amusing.
But at the moment, it's all rather quietened down in the Labour Party, hasn't it?
Yes, well, I'm not someone who likes to blow his own trumpet, but that's almost entirely due to me.
Really?
Yes. Because at the very outset, I saw the necessity for some emergency measures.
Yes. Involving what?
Well, involving saying things like, there's no need for that sort of language here.
Yes.
And giving injections. And handing out pills.
Yes, and was it all difficult? Did you
It
find
wasn't
difficult?
easy, no.
No.
I mean, Gordon Brown is a very big man to try to hold down.
Yes,
It's like wrestling with a porpoise.
yes.
But when the needle went in, he was much easier to handle.
Yes, yes, he became a rather quiet and emotional figure, didn't he? Yes.
Not at the moment the needle went
Not at the
in, no. But afterwards,
No,
yes.
no. Well, what did you do? I mean, what was
Well, of course, I do have the power, under Section 2 of the Mental Health Act, to send them all into secure accommodation. But it was felt that this might leave a vacuum at the heart of government.
That's a bad thing, is it?
Not necessarily. No. But as a psychiatrist, the first thing I have to do is to distinguish between behavior which is logical and behavior which is not.
Yes, yes, not easy thing to do.
No, and in this case there were groups of MPs and parliamentary private secretaries and junior ministers going to see Tony Blair. And one group would say, I am here to tell you you are an arsehole
Yes.
because I want to get a job with Gordon Brown. Now that is perfectly illogical behaviour.
Yes, that's logical. And what is the illogical?
Well, it's when a group goes to see Tony Blair and says you are the first Labour leader to be elected to a third term, and so you must resign immediately because you are bad luck, and if you don't, the crops will fail and we'll all get bird flu.
Yes. And this, of course, must have been very difficult for you.
It wasn't easy. It wasn't easy because, you know, if you were dealing with 2-year-old children, you would try to distract them.
Yes, yes. Balloons.
Give them balloons.
Balloons, yes.
Balloons to play with, but unfortunately these people haven't reached that stage of development. So what I had to do was to come up with what we call displacement activity.
Displacement activities.
Something meaningless but harmless to occupy their
Minds, for want of a better word.
Yes.
What sort of thing did you come up with?
Well, I thought a contest for the deputy leadership of the Labour Party might do the trick.
And has that been working?
Oh, yes. Oh, very much so.
Really?
Yes, so far. And it's becoming more and more popular.
Is it?
Yes,
Is
I can foresee a situation when everybody is a deputy leader of the of the Labour Party.
Yes.
And this, of course, suits the people in Number 10 very, very well.
The Tony Blair's people, because
Yes.
they're playing for time, essentially, on the...
Yes, yes, they have an idea, or what we psychiatrists call a delusion. That if they can hang on long enough, someone of the stature of Nelson Mandela will come along and prevent Gordon Brown from ever becoming Prime Minister.
Yes. And, have they seen anybody of the stature of Nelson Mandela?
Well, they thought they had.
Did they?
They did, but in fact it was only Alan Johnson who blacked up.
Yes. No.
And that really
No,
wasn't
no.
good enough. No.
But now, on the whole, it's rather peaceful in the Labour Party, isn't
Well,
it?
touch wood,
Yes.
touch wood. But, I mean, an outbreak could happen at any time.
Yes.
You know, Jeff Hoon could suddenly snap
Snap.
any time of the day or night, and then I'd have to rush round and try to make sure he was taking his medication. But so long as they are, it gives me breathing space to concentrate on individual patients.
Yeah, of whom I suppose Tony Blair is the most important. And,
Yes, indeed he is.
No,
Yes.
I can't expect you to divulge the confidentiality of your relationship.
No,
but
obviously
perhaps
not.
you could tell us a few things.
Yes. Well, obviously, he's going to have to come to terms with the most colossal change in his
When
life.
he leaves office, I mean,
Yes.
he'll miss a lot of things. I mean, what will he miss most? Has he said anything to you?
Well, he said only yesterday that he was desperately worried that very, very rich people won't want to come round and have dinner with him.
No. Were you able to reassure him at all?
Well, I tried. I said, well, you know, there's always Alan Sugar. You'll come round.
Yes.
You know.
You'll do anything for a free meal.
Of course he will.
Yeah. What about heads of state? You see, heads of state won't want to come around, will
It's
they?
very unlikely, isn't it?
Yes.
Yes. I mean, although, if it could be arranged, Saddam Hussein, who is a head of state,
Oh, what? Yes.
yes, might come round. You never know.
But, I mean, government has to go on, doesn't it? I mean,
Yes.
somebody has to run the country.
Yes, it does. Yes. You see, we're sitting on a powder cake.
With, as far as the Labour Party is concerned.
It could go up at any moment.
Yes. And they'd all be at each other's throats
Exactly.
again. Yes.
And it's absolutely vital that somehow we get through the Labour Party conference before the drugs start to wear off.
George Parr, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Much as well.
Well, I suppose it's that time again when we have to make our minds up. You know, who are you going to vote for?
Well, I love that ex-rugby player who's come on leaps and bounds. Well, literally leaps and bounds, hasn't he?
Now, he did have that hiccup early on, didn't he, when he slashed his partner's throat with his ice skate?
Yes, he did. But, you know, they changed the other partner.
Yeah.
And now he's absolutely brilliant.
I'm sorry, what are you talking about?
Well, Dancing on Ice, they got the celebrity icon.
You didn't mean that, did you?
No, I didn't mean that. No, I meant the election for the London Mayor, because, I mean, that's something that can affect all of our lives, surely.
I don't think so. I don't think we're being offered much of a choice here, though. I mean, it's between the megalomaniac disguised as a comedian and the comedian disguised as a megalomaniac.
Ooh, that's profound. Which is which?
Actually, I'm not sure, but Boris does all the television programmes, doesn't he?
Yeah, but I mean, there's some advantage, isn't there, in having a mayor with a background in, you know, light entertainment. I mean, he might not be any good. I'm sure he won't be any good, but at least his jokes might be better than Ken's.
Oh, yes, for sure. Yes, for sure.
This whole contest is getting more and more like the Eurovision Song Contest, isn't
absolutely
it?
right.
You know.
I mean, they might as well just get a karaoke bar, put themselves up there, and that's how we vote. It's as good as we're
Well, who are you going to vote for? Well, I mean, actually, I needn't ask. I mean, you'll vote for Tory, won't you? Whoever it is.
No, not necessarily. No, it's a matter of making a a responsible and mature political judgment. I mean, Ken's done some quite good things on one hand. On the other hand, I can't stand his whiny little voice and that stupid moustache.
Oh, come on, he shaved his moustache off years ago.
Well, I know, but I mean, every time I look at him, I don't know about you, but I just sort of see this moustache.
So that's your idea of a
there.
mature political judgment, is it?
Yes, it is.
I know what you mean about that moustache. I almost felt it once, do you know?
What?
Kids, you remember this? I paid some money to kiss one of the gardeners off television at a charity do, and he wouldn't do it, but Ken Livingstone said he would. So I popped up, paid me money to charity. He only slipped the tongue in. Sorry, he did. Yeah, it was. I would have liked the choice. Do you know? I mean, it was almost like
his tongue down your throat.
It was like I had given my sweets to the stranger. Do you know what I mean? It was value for money, but at the same time, no
If he
choice.
does get elected, I mean, no woman in the street is going to be safe.
No,
Are they?
you couldn't
You
walk
have a
past
tongue-
yawning.
No, I know. Oh, anyway, you're very scathing about my mature political... No, yes, you are. Well, so who are you going to vote for?
Well, at least I'll try and stick to some basic political principles.
Oh, God, Matt, we all know what that means. She's going to vote Liberal Democrat.
Nothing.
No, don't be ridiculous. That man, what's it called? The gay policeman, Brian Paddock. Yes, that would be, hello, big boy.
That man in uniform, do you?
are you going to be doing after the show tonight? Look, his programme will just be Skin Up a Spliff with Paddock. That's all it'll be. And London will be just the same. You'll just feel better about it because it's the Lib Dems.
No, the thing about the spliff, now that wasn't true because he sued the Mail on Sunday for that and he won.
No, well then that must be true then if they
That
say.
didn't happen.
It didn't happen.
Didn't happen, okay.
Didn't never happen.
Well, isn't that typical of the Lib Dems? The only interesting thing about the bloke, and it turns out not to be true. I suppose if he does, I mean, he won't be elected, but at least there'll be a massive expansion in the provision of public lavatories, wouldn't
Well,
there?
that's
So
true.
the trouble with Boris, really, is that if as a may be a liability, he offends so many people. He offended all people in Liverpool. He offended people in Portsmouth. He said that everybody who lived in Papua New Guinea was a cannibal.
Well, yeah, but I mean, at least he tells it how he sees it.
as
Well,
it
it's how he
is.
sees it that bothers me. I mean, has he ever been to Papua New Guinea? No, I'm sure.
In any case, he said, you know, to be fair, he said that Papua New Guinea was mainly full of cannibals.
Cannibals.
That's a
There you
difference.
go. Mainly full.
Yeah, and you don't have to go there to know that.
No.
I don't have to go to Brixton to know it's full of crack addicts. Mainly. All right, mainly full of crack addicts. 9 out of 10.
Are there just the three running? Three
No,
candidates?
There's more than that. There's lots of people running, but the Respect have got the BNP. I think there's an old people's party.
What are they called?
I can't remember, but then neither can they.
Rover, you are an old English sheepdog.
I am, yes.
It's very good to get a representative of such a distinguished breed here this evening.
Well, thank you very much.
Not at all.
This is a wonderful and I must say very rare opportunity to have a public platform
Yes.
to try to put across a dog's viewpoint.
The dog's been for you. You don't often get that these days, do you?
You don't?
No.
No, you don't. There are lots of groups who are constantly canvassed for their opinions.
Yes.
Immigrants, pensioners,
Muslims.
Muslims.
Yes.
Everyone is very keen to know what a Muslim thinks about anything. But they don't ask the dog.
No.
And yet, in this great country of ours, there are many, many more dogs than Muslims.
Yeah. And yet it's only very rare that a dog's opinion on issues of the day is taken into account, really.
Absolutely, but I think, and I'm afraid to say this, but it is largely the dog's own fault. Far too many dogs limit their ambitions to lying in front of the fire, licking their genitals.
Well, somebody's got to do it, haven't they?
Of course they do.
Yes.
But there's more to life than that.
Not much more, though, is there?
No, granted, but I think we should try to set our sights a little higher because, you know, human politicians can learn so much from a dog.
Dog, yes.
Because political life is full of betrayal and backstabbing.
Backstabbing, yes.
And a dog can teach the values of faithfulness, loyalty, and obedience.
Yes.
And, of course, dogs don't drink.
No. Or take drugs.
Or take drugs.
No.
So there you have the values of sobriety.
But not monogamy.
There, that would be asking too much. Both politicians and dogs.
Yes. But so what are you suggesting, perhaps, that say cabinet ministers should have a dog with them at all times, so they don't behave badly in front
In
of the
front
dog?
of them, exactly.
That's-
Yes. Yes.
Didn't work for David Blunkett, though, did it?
No, he didn't.
No.
No. You know, I knew Sadie very well.
His guide dog, yes.
His guide
yes.
dog. I knew her. What an awful life.
Oh.
I mean, she has had to witness things that a dog should never see.
No. Going home and having to listen to the dreadful sounds from the next room.
Oh, that was the worst of all.
Yes.
She told me about that.
Did she?
The screaming woman in the bedroom.
Oh, dear.
screaming, "Give me a visa!" I want it now, big boy.
Yes. Of course, all politicians are not like David Blunkett.
Oh, no.
No,
If they were, it would be impossible to contemplate. No, there are some politicians who have some glimmer of
Good
something.
sense.
For instance, Tessa Jowell.
Tessa Jowell, yes.
Yes, Tessa Jowell. Oh, sorry, that reminds me.
Yes, you say you are in negotiation. You say you're in negotiations with Tessa Jowell.
Yes.
Oh, well, I suppose now I'll have to. Did you have a meeting of minds there at all?
She did seem to grasp that having a dog gave a politician a certain credibility. After all, if you're a beggar, you know, you get more money if you have a dog with you.
Yes. So
Yes,
that-
and she understood that in a very sort of dim way.
Dim way.
But there are more practical things that we can teach.
Such as what, you think?
Well, for example, humans are very, very bad at assessing each other.
Yes.
I mean,
yes.
people can spend a lifetime trying to find out whether they trust someone, and even then they get it wrong.
Yes, well, obviously, Tony Blair and Gordon Brown is the obvious example of that.
Exactly. Whereas a dog has only got to sniff another dog's bottom for a few seconds, and he knows exactly where he stands.
So, are you suggesting that Gordon Brown and Tony Blair should sniff each other's bottoms, perhaps rather more than they have done in the past?
Well, it's certainly worth a try, isn't it?
This is all rather vague, though, isn't it?
Vague in what sense?
Well, I mean, it's all about dogs giving and setting an example, having influence. It's not about dogs actually actively engaged in politics, is it?
Oh, yes.
do you
Oh,
think
yes.
we
I
could-
think
you
that
think
I
that's
can
beyond
see
us,
the
no?
future in policy. We can make dramatic interventions.
In actual policy?
In actual policy, yes.
Yeah,
Because, you know, dogs now have this sixth sense about their masters.
Yes.
A dog will be able to tell when its political master might be about to do something particularly stupid.
Yeah, you could sense that.
You could sense it.
How would that work?
Well, if, for example, a politician thought of invading another country
Yes.
for no reason at all, he could intervene by grabbing hold of the trouser leg of the politician and pulling him away.
In the long term, do you see dogs running the country?
Oh no, dogs are far too sensible for that.
Well, Rover, thank you very much.
Thank you, I've enjoyed it.
I'll say, I mean, that was a wonderful meal. Wonderful meal.
delicious,
And the
absolutely.
potatoes just alone must have taken absolutely ages.
No, not at all. Do you know, the whole thing took me 10 minutes.
You kidding?
10 minutes?
It's the new Delia method. Everything came in a tin.
What, even the roast suckling pig?
Yes, even that, Jill. Everything came in a tin.
Mind you, if you know the economic crash gets worse, then this is how we're all going to be living. We're all going to be eating out of tins.
If things carry on like they're going, you know, we all could be very poor.
We
What
could.
do you mean, what things?
Well, you know that half-timbered house down the hill, the Hallidays that lived there, well, they were trying to sell their house, and the agent said the house was worth 10% less than it was last month.
That means that our house is worth 10% less.
Probably.
Oh, my God!
Yes.
Well,
Well, then that means I am poor.
don't exaggerate. We're not that badly.
Well, I don't know. I mean, what a shock. You see, I've always thought, what would it be like to be poor? And now I think I know. Oh, my God.
You could sell your house in Normandy.
Is that what poor people do? They sell their second house?
Yes. But I mean, the trouble is that by then it could be that we're all so poor that no one will be able to afford your house. in Normandy.
We sell it to the French.
No, Matthew, what are you talking about? We have put our hearts and souls into that place. La clé de vivre. I'm not going to give it to some French person.
Any case, they feel pretty out of place there now because everybody else in the village is English.
Exactly. Exactly. No one to talk to.
I just don't understand why this has happened so suddenly.
No.
You know, why?
Why to
now?
us? Why to us? We haven't done anything wrong.
No, we haven't.
that's true.
Because for the last 10 years, we've been going out and spending money
Spending
like
money.
we were supposed to do.
Hand
Exactly.
over fist.
To keep the economy
Absolutely,
going.
we've been doing that.
Yeah.
But you see, it's the bloody banks and
Yeah.
their
Yes.
greed. And the
Yes.
government, I'm sorry to say this, but they're completely pathetic.
Pathetic.
They're only going to guarantee, what is it, the first £35,000 of deposits in the bank? Well, what's that to a man like me? It's a drop in the ocean.
Nothing.
You
Nothing.
can't trust banks anyway. I mean, you used to be, in the old days, you could trust a bank because you had a bank manager.
Yes.
So there was a personal relationship. You could go in there and you could tell by his demeanour,
Sure.
you know, how things were. If he was looking pale, then you'd be a bit worried.
Yes.
If he was standing on the window ledge outside his office, you'd be even more worried. Yes.
Wonder sometimes. You know, I mean, I think we must look at ourselves first of all, and I wonder, is there such a thing as having too much money? You know?
No.
I'm minded of that beautiful Irish poem. I will arise and go now and go to Innisfree. It's Bono, I think. And a small cabin build there of clay and wattles made.
What's a wattle?
9 bean rows will I have.
9?
That's a
Aye,
lot.
yeah, it's all there, yeah. And peace shall I find there, you know. And I suppose my point is, and indeed Bono's point is, that we can survive with very little. And I look at my own situation and I think, you know, I would be happy if I now had no more.
Really?
Yes, well, now, provided I could keep my house and everything, you know, my needs, everything that I have now.
And your cleaner and yes.
Yeah, but that is enough.
Yes, but that would be enough. I understand. Yeah.
I knew a man who actually was suddenly impoverished. I mean, overnight, virtually, he lost everything. And it was very interesting because he accepted it. He just constantly had a very vivid sort of inner life, and he concentrated on that. And he was a very, very wise man in very many ways. And I'd like to have spent more time with him. But he smelt rather a lot.
But, you know, what I feel is that when the going gets tough, the tough get going.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
I'm going to be doing what in the city we call bottom trading.
Oh, darling, I don't like the sound
Fishing.
of that.
No, it's yes, it's when the shares hit the rock bottom, you see, on the bottom, then you get them.
If you go back to the Great Depression, 1929, the only people who did well out of that, as it were, Hitler and Mussolini.
Yes. Well, those were redeeming features, I suppose.
That they did well.
But, I mean, where are we going to find our Mussolini?
Yes.
That's
Where?
the problem, isn't it?
Where will we
Well.
find a strong personality?
Yeah.
Who is the man we need?
Who is the man?
Yeah, maybe he's playing left back for AC Milan.
Is there a Mussolini playing for them?
Oh, I think so.
George Park, you are a junior minister at the Department for Business, Enterprise and Regulatory Reform.
I am.
Yes. Well, after that, we haven't got much time. But can you confirm that the government have recently announced that they're going to pursue a programme of building 10 new nuclear power stations?
Yes, it was announced in January.
Yes.
And it completely refutes the idea that Gordon Brown is a ditherer.
A ditherer, yes.
Yes, because as he told Jon Snow on Channel 4 News, you know, this decision to go nuclear was a prime example of what a decisive Prime Minister he really is.
Yes, well, in July 2006, Tony Blair had said that he was going to go ahead with building nuclear power stations.
Indeed, yes.
Yes. So Gordon Brown was being at his most decisive when he took a decision that Tony Blair had made 2 years before.
Yes, but you can't make a very good decision too many times,
No,
can you?
Very true.
You know, after all, we don't have many.
You don't have many. No, but 3 years before that, the government said they were going to rule out nuclear because, to quote, it was an unattractive option which would be very, very expensive and would have a limited impact on climate change.
Yes, but by 2006, Tony Blair said the facts had changed.
What facts?
Well, he changed his mind.
Yes.
I mean, that's a fact.
But nuclear power stations are very expensive, aren't they?
Yes, they're very expensive, but we, as a government, have decided that these power stations will be built by private industry.
Only private industry.
Only private industry, with absolutely no government subsidy at all.
Even though no nuclear power station anywhere in the world has ever been built without public money.
Well, there's a first time for everything, and it will create numerous jobs and wonderful opportunities for British companies.
So what companies are likely to be given the contracts to build these power stations then?
EDF and E.ON.
Yes, EDF is French and E.ON is German.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, so give me one good reason why they should be given the contract to build these power stations.
Well, Gordon Brown's brother Andrew is the corporate communications director of EDF.
Yeah.
That's a good reason.
That is a good reason, yes. It doesn't sound as though there are going to be many new British jobs, though, does it?
No, but on the other hand, if while they're building these power stations, the French and German technicians experience an enormous catastrophic accident,
Yes.
only foreigners will get killed.
Only foreigners.
The only drawback, which I'm sure you realise, is that the costs,
Yes.
particularly of getting rid of nuclear
waste,
waste and that kind of thing.
I mean,
colossal.
you probably have no idea what these things will cost, these power stations.
No, of course not. We're a government department.
Yes. But we know that, in fact, the cost of the power station will be dwarfed by the cost of dealing with the waste and of decommissioning the power stations afterwards. I mean, even decommissioning the power stations that we already have, which are going to be switched off very soon, even that is going to cost at least £75 billion.
Yes, yes, and the government will pay for that.
The government.
Yes.
How are you going to deal with the nuclear waste and the nuclear waste in the future?
Well, at the moment, we're storing the low-level nuclear waste near Sellafield at a village called Drigg.
Till when?
Until we can think of some way of dealing with it.
Yeah.
But we're making progress because the council at Drigg is very, very, public-spirited.
Is it?
Yes, and in fact they're going to extend the dump.
Are they?
Yes, and we're giving them a down payment of £10 million. Plus £1.5 million a year for as long as the dump operates. And on top of that, we're giving them £2 million. And considering there are only 300 people living in Drigg,
Yes.
they're going to be very pleased.
Yes, and this council, aren't they the people who just fined a man £225 for not closing the lid of his wheelie bin? Your arrangement will deal with all the radioactivity that we're likely to get in future.
No, it will deal with 0.0003%.
Yes. So that leaves quite a lot.
It does, the intermediate and high-level waste.
Yes. And what are you going to do with that?
Well, what we're doing is to offer any village or community £1 billion if they'll take it on.
Is it a bribe?
Yes, it is.
Is it an illegal subsidy?
Yes, certainly. But we're desperate.
Yes.
Because we have 500,000 tons of this stuff. And it's extremely dangerous.
Is it? Yes.
And it will last 20 times longer than the entire history of the human race.
Yes.
You see? So it means that some of the villagers, by the time it's safe, will be dead.
Yes.
But I can reassure the public, if they're thinking that this sounds a rather risky procedure, because the new power stations are going to be what we call Generation 3.
Third generation, yes, we're the ones we're going to get, yes.
Much more advanced.
Yes.
They will produce much less low-level nuclear waste.
Much less.
But quite a lot more very, very high level.
And is this more dangerous?
Oh, extremely dangerous.
Yes.
Extremely dangerous, and 16 times more radioactive than any waste that's been produced anywhere in the world.
Yes. Isn't this rather an argument, though, for concentrating more on renewable energy?
You mean like wind turbines?
Wind turbines, yes.
Oh, no. Because, I mean, at least nuclear power stations are silent. Whereas these wind turbines make this ghastly whirring noise.
Yeah.
It would drive me mad.
Yes, well, we don't want a madman in the government, do we? George Parr, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Oh, well, that was lovely, Mary. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Absolutely
You're
lovely
very
meal.
welcome.
Is Lucy all right? She left the room in a bit of a hurry, I thought.
Oh, no, she's fine. She's fine.
It's not my food again, is it? Mary?
No. I mean, she's probably throwing it all up, but that doesn't mean to say she didn't absolutely love it.
Oh, well, but it's not a very good sign, is it?
No, but she does it all the time now. She's very worried about obesity.
Lucy?
Yeah.
But she's not fat. What is she worried about obesity for?
No, but I mean, obesity is a big social problem. Because apparently by 2010, 30% of British people are going to be obese. And I think she's very wise to strangle at birth.
Oh, yes, I'm much better, thank you.
I thought it was
No,
something like
not at all.
I explain. It's nothing to do with Mary's cooking.
Absolutely not. No, it was delicious.
I must say I'm very impressed by your efforts against obesity. I mean, I think if more people, throw up everything they eat,
Yes.
this world would be a much healthier place to live. And thinner. And messier, of course. But then we want to pay our council tax for. The fire brigade come and hose down the pavement, no problem.
It is terrible. You see some terrible things involving fat people, though, don't you? I mean, I was on a bus only last week, and a family of fat people got on, and the whole bus tilted to one side. It was terrifying. All of us thin people had to rush to the other side to try to ride, and between the bus tilting over and the fear that one of the fat people would come back and squash us to death.
Like wailing.
Very dangerous.
Like wailing.
I wasn't going to mention it while we were eating, but bank holiday Monday, I was driving up from the country, and I had to go into one of these service stations. I never do. But I was just a comfort break. And honestly, I have never ever seen such a group of unattractive people.
Disgusting.
And they were just sitting there, stuffing themselves with grease. I mean, it was horrible. And they were sitting on these little round red plastic stools. But you couldn't see the
No,
stools.
you can't see
They were just sitting on a sort of steel.
But I mean, the one common denominator in everything we're saying, and you know that I'm not one to make snap moral judgments here, but the one common denominator is all these fat people are working class. Why do we think that is? What does that tell us?
They're stupid. They are stupid, and they don't look after their diet. They're too stupid to learn about their diet.
And fat.
They are the working class. I have nothing against the working classes. You know me on this. But they are stupid and fat and entirely feckless and irresponsible, and you would think that they would look after their own interests.
Absolutely.
But you don't get very fat rich people.
No, you don't.
Because they have their personal trainers.
Yes,
rather.
but the gym membership is too expensive. They look after themselves, and it's thousands of pounds to join a gym now. But the government must intervene here, because if they are stupid and fat, they're not going to be, unless they do what I do, and they're too stupid to do that.
Overweight people are not going to be able to have IVF treatment on the NHS.
Really?
No. I mean, I'd have thought there is a civil liberties issue there.
Well, I understand what you're saying, Matthew. Well, let me put it this way, right? Instead of us having absolute blind prejudice about something that is a very important issue, I think we should look at it a little more objectively.
Yes.
And I think if you do that, we'll all come to the same conclusion that fat people shouldn't be allowed to bring more fat, ugly people into the world.
Ugly things in this world already.
Indeed.
Why do the NHS offer IVF to lesbians, for instance?
Exactly, but not to fat people.
Yes, I mean, lots of lesbians are fat. Well, most of them, it seems to me. So, I can understand that maybe that's part of it. But when you think of it, lesbians are allowed IVF, and it's not it's not a problem for them to have children. They can have children.
Yes.
But the NHS surely should be for all conditions.
Well, yes, but no. Lesbianism, you told me this. Lesbianism is not a condition. It's a hobby.
It is a hobby.
And they can have those children. They're just not prepared to go the normal way about it.
That's right. And what is the result of letting lesbians breed in this artificial way? It just means more lesbians and more lesbians. And families growing up without a father.
Without a father, and you know what happens there? The statistically has been proved.
What happens when they grow up without a father?
The children go to prison.
Yes.
Inevitably.
But obesity is in fact a ticking clock.
Tipping the scales.
Yes.
Tipping the scales.
Because obese people die prematurely.
Yes, well, I don't mind that.
No.
But before they keel over with heart disease or whatever fat
Organ
people die of,
failure and all of that.
I have to look at them.
Yes.
And it's just distasteful.
I mean, in some ways I'm torn about this because, as you know me, that I'm not one who would suggest that people should be coerced into doing things that they don't want to do.
Cool.
And, I mean, on the face of it, you would have to say that a fat person has the same rights as everybody else, but they do smell, don't they? They do. And you're sitting next to them on the plane, apart from the smell, they wobble across, the fat bits wobble across.
And you can't read.
You can't
No.
read.
You can't read. You sit like this. You can't
You're
drink your
just
gin and tonic.
Greasy afterwards, and you feel so used.
No.
Has anyone ever thanked you, any fat person, when they've sat on you?
I mean, I, on the whole, would sooner sit next to an Asian than a fat person. And, run risk to the bottom. But then Asians at least thin.
Yes.
Yes, I mean, in fairness, aside from Imelda Marcos, when was the last time you saw a fat Filipino?
No.
For example.
Yes.
It's so true, the Asians quite thin.
They
quite
don't
thin,
lie
yes.
very often, do they?
It's funny. Do you know what I think's wrong with the world? There are less and less people like us who are prepared to sit around a dinner table
You're
like
so
this
right. You're
and
so
have a
right.
rational, calm,
Yes.
philosophical
Yes.
conversation
Yes.
about real issues that
World
face
problems.
the world.
People won't take the trouble, will they? They won't take the time. They don't want to put
And,
themselves
you know,
through it.
these Friday
Busy
nights
eating.
together, I think people will look back on us and people like us as a kind of golden age,
Indeed.
like the 18th century.
Like
Yes.
Jane Austen.
Yes.
Jane Austen.
Yes.
Oh, now, was she a lesbian?
George Parr,
Yeah.
you are a minister at the Department of Education.
Yes, I am. Yes.
And last week you published a long-awaited bill on the reform of secondary education.
It was a proud moment.
Yes.
Yes, I remember turning to my wife and saying, "Darling, how can we mark this wonderful this moment?" And she said, "Well, take out another mortgage on the house," and that's what we did. But that's another story.
Yes. Yes, it is. Well, you must be looking forward to seeing the bill through Parliament.
Very much so. Very much so. Anybody who looks at this bill will know that anybody who's fair-minded, who's intelligent, who's right-thinking, will support this bill.
Like the Conservatives.
Oh no.
No, they support it.
Yes, but only for political reasons. No.
I see.
We wouldn't stoop that low.
I see. And why is it, do you think, it's so important that you win the vote on this?
Well, because Tony Blair then can say, "Look what I did. Look what I did. I got the Labour Party to support an idea of mine." And it means I can ignore the support of our dyed-in-the-wool political opponents whose election to the government would be such a tragedy for our country.
But those are political reasons.
No, they're statesmanship. Yes, and, of course, driving up standards.
Yeah, driving up standards. What does that mean?
What does what mean?
Driving up standards. It's something you say an awful lot.
We do say it a lot. We say it a lot for a very good reason. Because if we say it often enough, people will start to think it means something.
But then why is it that after 9 years of trying to reform education,
Yes.
you're now saying, look at all these failing schools?
I think it's because we're very, very bad at it. I think that's probably the only reason.
And what makes you think that these new ideas will be any better?
What makes me think that? A self-delusion on a colossal scale. and in my case, an ever-weakening grip on reality.
In your more lucid moments,
Yes.
what do you think is the most important part of the education bill?
Of the education bill, without any question, it's the provision that will allow state schools to be taken over or started up by faith groups.
By religious organizations.
Yes, exactly, yes. Mm.
Why is that?
Well, we've made such a mess of it that we think it's worth having a try of passing it over to a power greater than ourselves.
Like Silvio Berlusconi?
No, not Silvio Berlusconi, no. No, although that's quite a good idea. No, he who dwells in the beyond.
I see. You mean something like Church of England schools?
No, religious organisations. People who actually believe in something. That sort of thing.
Yes. Doesn't that rather run counter to Labour's tradition of secularism?
Well, what you have to remember is, of course, Tony Blair has very, very strong and direct experience of faith groups,
yes.
You see. After many years trying to sort out sectarian violence in Northern Ireland, and more recently Islamic terrorism, naturally he wants more of that sort of thing in our schools.
Yes. So this is a personal thing with Tony
Yeah,
Blair,
very much a personal thing. It's his legacy. It's his legacy. He doesn't want to just be remembered by the Iraq War, you know, which incidentally is now nothing whatever to do with us.
Is it not?
No. It's purely now a civil war between two factions, between two factions of a religion whose backing will be so welcome in our educational system. We can imagine a system having two Islamic schools, two Muslim schools in the town, one teaching Sunni, one teaching Shia and emergency firefighting.
And the Prime Minister is not discouraged by all this?
Not at all discouraged, nor is he discouraged by Hindus attacking Muslims or by Sikhs picketing theatres. No, he's not. He works on the assumption that anybody who is religious, whatever their faith, is better behaved, more self-disciplined, and doesn't cause any trouble. So there'll be a few bombs, but there'll be no smoking behind the bike sheds.
What do you think the biggest thing is that these religious groups can teach their children?
How to be offended by other people.
And that, you think, is the most important part of the bill?
Well, there are three pillars to the bill. There's religion, as I've said. There's choice.
Yes.
And there's parent power.
Yes, I see. And a choice?
Choice is between what people used to have and what they're going to have in the future. Whether they like it or not.
Yes, and parent power, how would you define that?
Parent power, well, it's very important. It's because parent power is any education secretary eventually ends up talking about parent power when they can't think of anything else, because it makes a number of voters think they're more important than they really are.
It doesn't mean that the government thinks that parents are the best judge of how to educate their children.
Look, put it this way, parents are the best judge of how to educate their children in exactly the same way as they're the best judge of how to perform brain surgery on them.
George Parr, thank you very much.
Not at all.
Thank you. Thank you.
I tell you what, you know, what they say about David Cameron. He may be wet and smarmy and spineless and all those things, but I'll say one thing in his favour. He's got a lovely kitchen.
Really? Have you been there?
No, I saw it on TV News.
You see it on this ridiculous website.
Yeah.
He's got this website that shows him in the kitchen.
Shows him in this kitchen. He's got a lovely Smeg hood extractor. Which I've wanted for a long
So
time.
it wouldn't make me vote for him. Just, I mean, you see him in the kitchen pretending to do the washing up.
The way things stand at the moment, I'm certainly going to vote for him.
Well,
Are you?
Really?
Yes, I am.
Yes, that surprised me because, I mean, I wouldn't have thought you, in particular, went for all this greenery stuff, and certainly not for, you know, I'm not going to cut taxes.
No, well, I assume he's lying. You know, because he wants to create a good image for himself, and then he'll cash in.
That's very harsh, darling.
Yeah.
Very harsh. Very harsh on David Cameron.
Do you think?
Oh, yes, I do think so. I mean, you know, you have to remember that not everybody is as sophisticated as you are. I mean, most people trust that the politicians will say roughly what they mean, and then they won't be able to do anything about
darling,
it.
the thing about it is that he's lying.
Yes, he is.
He's lying, and he's very, very good
He's
at
got
lying.
a big gas-guzzling car in that garage.
Absolutely, he's lying because, you know, he learned to do it at Eton.
Of course.
But the thing is, the people will vote for him anyway, not because they appreciate his policies, or maybe he hasn't got any policies, who knows, but they'll vote for him because they're fed up with Tony Blair.
Exactly.
Oh,
Simple
yes.
as
They're
that.
fed up with Tony Blair and they're frightened of Gordon Brown.
Because he's too left-wing.
No, because he's Scottish.
Yeah.
Oh,
Because, you know, it's bad enough as it is, you know, listening to all the dreary policies about social reform and they're banging on without having to listen to it in that squealy,
It's terrifying.
unendurable.
And that isn't the worst thing about Gordon Brown. I mean, being Scottish. I mean, it's bad enough. But what's the worst thing about him is that he's a Puritan.
Absolutely.
He's a grim,
Absolutely.
dour son of the manse. Nothing.
Yes.
No smile.
He's
Nothing.
joyless, isn't he? And so straight-laced. I mean, you know, you can't even imagine him getting pleasure from something like, I don't know, you know, covering his wife in instant custard and licking it off.
No, you couldn't.
You know, it's unimaginable.
I tell you, he wouldn't know pleasure if it bit him on the bum. I mean, under him, it's going to be like living under Oliver Cromwell. We'll all be saying our prayers and be in bed by 8:30.
The fact, what you've got to realise is that, you know, we need, and the Tory party desperately needs, to be cavalier. Because we're on the verge of a new Carolinian age.
Exactly.
Is that something to do with Karl Vorderman?
Not this time.
Charles III.
Not this time.
Carolingian.
Oh,
Yeah,
yes,
Charles
yes.
II came after Cromwell.
Yes.
And, you know, he was a cavalier. People had fun.
Had fun, and it would be wonderful to go into that age again. You know, everybody had frock coats, powdered wigs, lovely long curly hair, and cocker spaniels. Everybody danced and laughed.
Such fun,
It's like,
yes, and
it's like
style.
when we had the new Elizabethan age in 1953.
Yes.
Oh, I remember that.
Yes.
And we climbed Everest, and we broke the 4-minute mile.
Yeah,
That's
great
right.
days.
Oh,
Great
they were.
days.
They
Yes.
were wonderful days. What we've got to have is a swashbuckling cavalier king that we can look up to and have fun with.
With long hair and a
With
cocker
long
spaniel.
hair. And with a cocker spaniel. There's no reason
Yes.
why not.
I mean, the problem having a republic as well is who'd be president. Because you just get the usual suspects all the time, you know, like Ken Livingstone and Esther Ranson and Bono. You know, it's so boring.
Yes. But look at it this way. I mean, maybe David Cameron will turn out to be so exciting a prime minister that really nobody will care who's the king or the president or
He
whatever.
won't, though. He won't.
Well, you never know. You say that, Matthew, but you know, when a man is in office, I can say from experience, when a man is in office, has a form of aphrodisiac. Has an aphrodisiac element.
Yeah, I mean,
And they become attractive because they have power.
yeah. I mean, nobody wanted to sleep with David Blunkett until he joined the cabinet.
And then too many people did.
Going up
Well,
to
as we all know, all power corrupts, as they say, as well as
Yes,
being an aphrodisiac. So maybe we shouldn't vote for David Cameron just for his own protection.
It's true.
That would be a very charitable thing to
Yes.
do.
It's probably for the best.
I think it is.
But
I
I'm
think
still
it
going
is.
to vote for him.
George Parr, you won a bronze medal for shooting at the Commonwealth Games.
I did.
Yes, I'm over here, actually.
Sorry. Got you now.
Yes.
The
is
wind.
That, yes. Is that loaded?
I don't know.
Well, I think if you could put it down, do you think, for the...
yes, certainly, yes. There we are.
And I gather you intend, or you will hope, to be selected for Britain, not just for the next Olympic Games, but for the ones after that, to
I
be
certainly do.
held in London, yes.
Using this. I should be using this.
Yes, sorry.
Yes.
What is your particular event?
It's the event, yes, is the semi-prone blindfold. Shoot your hat off trap.
The semi-prone blindfold, you had up. That sounds as though you need a very strong nerve for that.
Yes, but an even stronger nerve for the man wearing the hat.
Yes.
Basically.
What happens in the...
Well, it's not as complicated as it might sound.
No.
A chap stands 30 meters away from me.
Yes.
I assume the semi-prone position. And,
Yes.
and I shoot his hat off.
How are you blindfolded?
No, I'm not blindfolded. No, he wears the blindfold. Yes.
Now, Gordon Brown, excuse me, Gordon Brown has offered 200 million pounds, I think it is, to fund elite athletes between now and 2012.
Yes.
Are you included in that?
Certainly am, yes.
Yes. It is an awful lot of money.
Well, no, because the pride of the nation is at stake.
And of course, the government has said that in return for the funding, they've set a target, in fact,
Yes.
that Britain at 2012 should win, to be fourth in the medal table.
Yes, well, they could spend a little less money and come fifth. But nobody wants that.
Well, except the money they would save would, I mean, for example, it would double the amount spent on mental health provision.
Yes, but I mean, we're talking about national pride.
Yes.
And surely it's worth having a few more loonies wandering around the streets. If we have some Olympic glory, isn't it?
And of course, you could spend a great deal more money and come third.
Yes, but then we'd have to shut down the NHS completely.
Yes. Of course, the motto of the Olympic Games used to be, it's not the winning, it's the taking part.
We've moved on from that.
Yeah.
Now it's not the winning or the taking part, it's the spending of the money. But the great thing is that when the games are finished, we will have these fantastic facilities there for succeeding generations.
Yes, like the dome is.
Like the dome.
Yes.
But the dome is still there.
Yes.
And that cost only £800 million. It's
Nothing.
a drop in the ocean compared to the
Yes.
Olympics.
Yes. Yes, but of course, you say that it'll be there, the facilities will be there for future generations, but most Olympic cities, they haven't experienced that. I mean, take Athens, for example, that's only 2 years ago.
Yes.
Not only did their games cost twice as much as they budgeted for, but now they're having to pay large sums of money for the upkeep on these empty stadiums which nobody is using.
Yes, but I mean, I've nothing against the Greeks. But, I mean, what can you expect? Although, I will say this, that, if it hadn't been for that Greek man who got drunk and pressed the wrong button, we wouldn't have the games at all.
No.
Would we? And what I'm looking forward to is the redevelopment of a whole area of London, the East End.
That's part of the aims of the game.
Absolutely.
The regeneration.
And when that happens, when the regeneration happens, we will have the biggest car parks in Europe.
Yeah. Something besides has got to happen before the opening ceremony, of course.
Yes, that's what I'm looking forward to.
The opening ceremony.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes.
The opening
ceremony, of course, is now almost an Olympic event in itself.
It is. Cities competing against each other, and we've already started our plans.
Have you?
Yes.
Have you any idea what...
Well, the whisper is that, I mean, there'll be a huge amount of things going on, but the centrepiece will be a gigantic replica of the Queen's teeth.
Yes.
Her radiant smile.
Yes,
and
very,
that will
very
move
striking.
around.
Yes.
Move around the arena, and the teeth will open, and they will shut again.
Yeah.
We have the technology for that.
Yes.
And a voice will say, "And what do you do?"
Yes. If we could just go to your personal situation.
Yes.
I mean, you are, if you wouldn't mind me saying so, hardly in the first flush of youth.
I'm not.
And yet, you hope to be a competitor in 2012. I mean...
Oh, I have to be.
You do? What
Absolutely have
drives
to
you? What
be.
drives you?
me? Well, I'll tell you. It is the fact that during the games, for the whole duration of the games, I live on the North Circular Road.
Yes.
And one lane of the North Circular will be cordoned off for competitors, dignitaries and officials, of which I shall be one.
Yes.
Because if I'm not, it'll be the only way I can get to my house, you see. Being on the North Circular Road, it's the only way.
Yeah.
But if, otherwise, if I'm not selected for the team, then I intend to go on holiday for 2 weeks. And I strongly advise anyone in this country to do the same.
Well, Carl, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Gone all that way, and she's perfectly all right. It's absolutely dreadful. Well, I know she's your mother, but she's done this before. Oh. When will you be back then? Oh, God. All right. Okay. Well, everybody sends their love.
Absolutely,
Yeah. Not to her, to you. All right then. Bye.
So, I know, sorry.
Bloody woman.
It's a wild goose chase.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
But that's typical of Lucy. She is ridiculously caring. I mean,
is.
going all that way. And there is one comfort. At least we know that her mother will die.
Yeah.
She will.
She will. Sooner rather than later. And that's a comfort, isn't it?
It is.
Look, let's have some of these gorgeous chocolates that you brought.
Delicious as though this pudding is. It's
Oh,
no.
Oh, for goodness sake. Would you look at that?
Yes.
That is the last time I am buying anything from those gangs of boys that come with the big bags of stuff selling. I mean, they say that they're on this youth unemployment scheme, but they're not. They're just con men and gangsters.
There is one thing that these kids, at least they're doing something for themselves, they're not just relying on handouts from the state.
Well, yes, and I would approve of that if, and only if, the products worked. For instance, like their scissors worked. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's like every government scheme that I've ever heard of this nature, where they don't think it through. It's not joined up. The logic isn't there. They have these great ideas and then they don't work.
Yeah, but I mean, all the political parties are saying that public service, social services should be much more now delivered by voluntary groups.
Well, yes, so that we can have more tax cuts.
Yes.
I mean, except for the low paid. I mean, I'm not a fan of Gordon Brown, but I think he was right not to give the tax cuts to the lower paid. No, because, what would happen if he had? I mean, they'd only spend the money, wouldn't they?
Yes.
Do some voluntary work at one stage. Didn't you used to help out in the drop-in centre for the old people? Do you still keep that up?
Well, I haven't been down for a bit, actually, and I mean, I do think it's incredibly valuable work. I think it's almost the most valuable work you can do. My only problem with it really was that after a time I realised I really loathed old people.
I'm not insensitive, it'll probably surprise you, to people suffering, especially old people.
But you don't do voluntary work, though, do you?
Yes, but it's targeted.
Oh, right.
Because, well, you know this, my tailor's got this mother who's 90 years old, and it's the usual thing, dementia, Alzheimer's.
Yeah.
And she takes a tremendous amount of looking after. So, I just, well... I do what I can, that's all.
Well, I must say, I've never thought it.
He's very, very caring.
Oh, yes. Oh, absolutely, because,
How does it work?
Well, when my tailor, makes me a suit and I pay him £1,200, I mean, I assume that some of that money goes on the mother. To buy her things.
Do you see, so that's joined up thinking. Yes, that is thinking through.
So
that works.
You're, as it were, you're caring for his
yes,
mother.
Yes, it's trickle down.
Yes.
And I do it completely selflessly. I mean, I don't expect her to write me letters of gratitude, Although, I mean, I do think that she could scrawl, a cross at the bottom of a Christmas card.
Do you not do any voluntary work? Because I just thought you, of all people, you would be the kind of person who would.
Well, I know, but I don't.
No,
I
go
don't-
on.
I
You know,
don't-
we're among friends.
I know,
Say.
but I don't like to
Look,
talk
I
about it.
mean,
It's
I
not,
think-
that's
no,
not the
come on.
point.
No,
you know,
it
it's-
is, because
You
I
tell
think
me
what
what-
you're doing is incredibly valuable, and I'm very, very proud of you. Shall I tell you?
Yes, come on, because she won't.
Mary has started working with the Samaritans.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic.
Yeah,
Well
it's-
done. Goodness.
It's just very early days, you know. I mean,
Well-
I've only been there, say, a week or so, you know, and it's tough. It's very, very hard work.
absolutely,
you know.
I can imagine.
You just don't know, you know, how to help. I mean, or you know, the right thing to say.
No. Well, I couldn't do it, could you?
No, I couldn't.
I did at the beginning. Found it very tough. I mean, for instance, there was a man who phoned last week, and it's all too regular a story. You know, he was absolutely despairing now because his wife had left him and he'd gone bankrupt and so on. And you know, he was wavering so much, you know, and I realised just some words of encouragement. That's what he wanted, you know, and he really was, as I say, wavering. And I chatted to him and gave him the encouragement he needed, and it was really wonderful because, in fact, as it turned out, he had a lot of sleeping tablets that he'd been saving up. So you know that all helped.
Mary, what exactly do you think the Samaritans do, basically?
They Oh God!
No, don't. Don't worry about it.
I
Don't
see.
worry.
Oh no!
I
That's,
mean,
that's
you've only been
terrible.
doing it a short time, so you can't have done that much.
And there might be teething problems.
Yeah,
But maybe I should phone and apologise, but it's probably too late for that.
I mean, you mustn't worry about it.
And
I just wanted to help.
I know.
You know,
That's what you were doing. You were trying to help people, as opposed to a lot of people, the majority of people, who go through their lives only thinking about themselves.
Thinking about themselves. And the great thing about helping other people is that it makes you feel better, doesn't it? I mean, otherwise there'd be no point in doing it. Don't you think so?
George Parr, you're a senior official at the Home Office.
I might be. I might not be.
Oh, is that all you're prepared to say? Can't you be more specific?
All I'm prepared to say is that I am connected with the government, and as such, it is my job to know about you, not your job to know about me.
Why not?
What is the most important task of government?
Spending a lot of other people's money?
No. The most important task is security. The
Good.
security of every decent, hard-working man and woman up and down the country. And we think that's best achieved by treating them all as potential criminals.
Does this have anything to do with identity theft?
It might be. It might not be.
Because it was revealed only last week that 10,000 passports are sent out each year to fraudulent applicants. And to stop this, you're going to insist that people applying for their first passport has a face-to-face interview.
That is correct. Yes.
How does that work?
Well, you would go somewhere to an office somewhere in the country, I'm not prepared to say where you will find a man seated. He will ask you up to 200 questions about yourself, to which only he knows the answer. If you answer the question right, you will get a passport. If you don't, you won't.
It sounds all a bit sinister.
Thank you very much.
But how does he know the answers?
Because he works for the government.
And what sort of questions will he ask?
Well, a perfectly straightforward question. The date of your mother's birth, that sort of thing.
But what if I don't remember the date of my mother's birthday?
Then you don't deserve to get a passport. And you don't deserve to go abroad. For heaven's sake, what will happen if you're walking down a street in Germany and somebody comes up to you and say, "When was your mother born?" and you don't know? It brings shame and disgrace on the country.
Does this have anything to do with your plan to introduce identity cards.
Well, yes, it is a dry run, as you say, for that. For identity cards, yes.
So that's going to happen?
Oh, yes,
is
yes.
it?
Everybody is going to have to carry an identity card, but it will be to everybody's advantage. It will show entitlement to state benefits, for example.
Well, that's an advantage.
It is an advantage, yes. It
Yes.
guarantees benefits on health and pensions and unemployment and housing and so forth.
So there will be a tremendous incentive to carry a card.
Yeah, tremendous incentive. Another incentive will be that if you don't carry a card, you'll be arrested.
And will the card contain an awful lot of information
As
about
much
us?
as we can cram in, it'll build up what we call a national identity register, which will tell the government an awful lot about everybody.
And how do I know that the information about me on this database is accurate?
The government says it will be presumed to be accurate.
Presumed by whom?
By the government.
I see. And so if I want to check the information on the database, can I do that?
Oh, well, under certain circumstances, yes, you can check the information, but you can't alter it if it's wrong. On the other hand, you are personally responsible for its accuracy.
But I mean, how can I be responsible for it if I can't alter it if it's wrong?
That's your problem.
But somebody must be able to alter this data.
Oh, yes, yes, the Home Secretary can alter it, or he can add new information, yes.
And will he check with me, obviously, first to confirm that the...
No, he won't check with you, he won't even tell you that he's done it.
Really?
Oh, he's a very busy man.
Yes.
I mean, every week there are murderers and sex criminals escaping from prison. He hasn't got time to ring you up and say, is it true you've got a wooden leg? I mean, be reasonable.
Yes. Well, I'm trying to be reasonable.
Yes, I'm sure.
If I get an ID card, I'll presumably have that for the rest of my life.
Not necessarily, no. Another power that the Home Secretary have, it would be to take away your identity card or to cancel it without reference to the courts.
But I can appeal that.
No, you can't appeal. And if you move house or get married or divorce, you'll have to get a new identity card and pay for it.
How much?
Well, it's thought it'll be about £93, but that's the government being generous because the actual cost will be about £200, but the rest of it will come out of taxation.
Oh, I see. Well, I pay taxes.
Well, then you will pay for it then.
And if you have to get a new ID card every time you move, I mean, what's going to happen about, I don't know, tramps and gypsies?
What about tramps and gypsies?
Well, no one's going to fork out for an ID card 3 or 4 times a week, are they?
No, they're certainly not, so there won't be any more tramps and gypsies. So that's that problem solved.
Yes, and presumably this scheme will need an enormous amount of computer power.
Oh, yes,
won't
a
it?
tremendous amount of computer power, yes.
But the government has a frightful record in computer projects, don't they? I mean, from the Passport Office itself, National Insurance,
Yes.
and, well,
Criminal Records Bureau.
Criminal Records Bureau,
NHS.
yes,
Air traffic control.
air traffic control, exactly. It goes on and on.
Absolute disasters, yes.
But aren't people going to be very frightened that this information on the database is going to leak out?
Well, no, it'll only leak out to the people the government will want it to leak out to. This will create a new climate of social responsibility.
What does that mean?
It means that it's not the government's job to prove you're a terrorist, it's your job to prove you're not.
George Parr, thank you very much.
Can I help clear away anything for you?
No. Anyway, you have to be very careful which bits of waste you put in which bin. Our council is very keen on recycling.
I mean, the other day I had this incredible row with the bin man because he said to me, I can't take that bin, madam, because you put a chicken leg in it. I said, listen to me. That's not just a chicken leg. This is a hand-reared, environmentally sound, organic chicken leg, and you should be privileged to handle it. Well, you've probably never seen one before.
Yeah.
It's not some $2.99 piece of gristle from Tesco Metro. So you be very grateful that this is the first time you've seen a chicken leg like this.
Good for you sticking up for yourself.
No.
Went over his head all that.
Yeah.
Well, we got a bin from our council that's full of maggots, and apparently that's tremendous for the environment.
Ah, yes, I heard that too.
Yes, I think it might have been, but then you knocked the bin over, and the maggots rather took over our
They
environment.
escaped quite a
I'm
lot.
still finding them in my underwear. It's embarrassing.
That's not good maggot in your
nasty,
underwear.
You know that the wheelie, they're putting microchips in the wheelie bins which can tell what goes in each bin. And if you put the wrong kind of waste
Yes.
in the bin, then you're named and shamed down at the council offices.
No.
Your pictures are put up along
Yes.
with the paedophiles.
Yes. Look, I'm all for saving the environment and climate change and all of that, but I'm not going to be bullied.
Oh, no, not at all.
And I'm not going to be dictated to by a bin.
No, and soon we'll have wheelie bins that can talk.
Yeah.
I mean, I
They
don't.
have already.
Do they?
Yes.
I'm not
Oh, that's
surprised.
horrible.
I don't want my wheelie bin to say, look, this is the third bottle of vodka you put in here this week. Don't you think you ought to go and talk to someone
It's
about
none
it?
of the bin's business.
No, it isn't.
But it will say to you, you know, why didn't you go down and see the bottle bank? The bottle bank is a trained psychotherapist.
Yeah, well, that's coming next, isn't it? I mean, it sickens me really because it's all part of the moral blackmail of
Yes.
modern life, isn't it? I mean, it's somebody telling you if you don't recycle your cardboard, right? For instance, that I don't know, the sea is going to rise 30 feet and the whole of Southampton will be subsumed or swept away, which frankly ain't a problem as far as I'm concerned.
And the worst thing is when some idiot with a beard and sandals and an incredibly smug expression
Oh, yes.
comes on television and says it's perfectly simple to rip your own roof off and replace it with solar panels.
Yes.
I did it myself in a weekend with a screwdriver and a ball of
And you
string.
bet your bottom dollar that he didn't do it himself. The television company did it for him, like all those people on changing rooms, whiz, 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 whiz.
Absolutely.
And he just stands there smugly with his beard,
He's a-
leering at the
a
camera.
beardy puppet doing
All of those environmentally sound, all of them, they're liars.
That's interesting, yeah. But I mean, don't you think, though, that it's all part of this, if you like, this propaganda to make people like us, ordinary people like us, feel guilty?
Exactly.
Well, we're not guilty.
Exactly.
I'm not guilty, you're not guilty. We've got maggots to
Yes.
prove
Oh,
it.
yes.
How big is your carbon footprint?
I tread lightly on the earth, I think is how you could explain it, yeah. Well, it's the little things, you know, that count up. I mean, for instance, I've put one of those low-energy bulbs into the downstairs loo.
That's a
now,
good idea.
it takes a while to come on, and that can be a bit challenging if you're in a bit of an emergency, you know, but you get used to that. And for instance, I don't drive my children to school in a 4x4. Gas
you don't.
guzzlers,
You
yeah.
don't.
yeah.
You
But
don't have children, though, do you?
But if I did have children, you know, I mean, no, I would make them walk to school, and I would make them eat tofu from sustainable tofu forests,
Yes.
and so on and so forth.
Yes.
You know, that sort of thing.
Darling, you do your bit, but I
I do.
have to say this, that there are bigger problems, because my offices in London are air-conditioned.
Yeah.
Now, you see, I could throw out the air conditioning, couldn't I?
No, it'd be
and
great.
earn some environmental brownie points for doing that.
Yeah.
But while I'm doing it, hey presto, in China, my competitors are installing air conditioning in all their
Exactly.
offices.
Ah,
And
yes.
that means that they work more efficiently,
efficiently, yes.
and they take the market, whereas we're hot and bothered,
Yes.
and we lose our shirts.
Exactly.
So it's
See, that's it. That's Chinese futures for you.
I said, if I'm going to make a move in the green direction, I want some big movement from China.
Yes.
To start. Yes.
Big move.
And India.
And India.
And India.
This is a worldwide problem, and it should have worldwide solutions. We can't do it all on our
can't
own.
do it
Not us
on
four.
our
You're quite right. You're
Of
quite right.
course we can't.
I mean, I'm impotent.
Yes. We all are. I mean, they expect us to be able to do it on our own. How can we?
Oh, it's depressing.
But the good thing is, by the time...
Oh, by the time global warming gets
Yes.
really bad in 30 or 40 years'
We're not
time, I mean, we won't be here. No, thank God.
I mean, if there is a comfort at all in any of this, that's it, isn't it?
Surely we should be thinking about what sort of world we're going to bequeath to the younger generation.
Oh, bugger the younger generation. I mean, you know, look, they get what they deserve, if you ask me. What are they all like? They're binge drinkers, they get pregnant when they're 9, they live off the state, they drive you mad with their bloody iPods and everything. everything else. Listen, when it's 150 degrees, when the temperature's 150 degrees, let them sort it out.
Yeah,
see where this has got them, what they're doing now.
See what they're made of.
See what they're made of. We had to do it on our own. Let them try.
Well, you see, the trouble is with these people, that we can call them people, is that they didn't go through the war.
Of course not.
Now, mind you, neither did you.
No, but I remember the Korean War,
Yes.
because I was at school, and the war in... What?
We learned about it.
We
in
learned
school.
about it, the Gloucesters, the glorious Gloucesters,
Yeah.
and then that war in, where was it, Kosovo. I
Yes,
saw
that was
that on.
horrible.
Yes.
I saw that too. That was a horrible war.
On television.
Yes.
Yes.
Horrific.
That was horrific.
Horrific images. I know.
It just,
Anyway, look, this
gets
is
me
all
down.
too depressing. Let's talk about something else.
Now, I know what'll cheer you up. I'm off to New York next weekend. What do you make of that?
Mary, what, for a couple of days?
Yes, just a few days shopping, yeah.
I'll come with you.
Would
We
you?
can stay at that gorgeous little Algonquin hotel.
That would
I'd
be
love to
really
stay.
fun.
Now,
Yeah,
you
that's
do know that the worst polluters are jet aircraft. They are the worst polluters in the world. Just you two, just on your own, going to New York, will put more carbon dioxide into the atmosphere.
Stop, you're
than
right.
Drax
You're
Power
wrong.
Station.
No, you're
You-
wrong, because we are flying club class.
Of course, whatever.
Big difference.
Yes, it's not us. The ones who pollute are all those chaps who go on Ryanair for ninepence.
Flying all around the world, it's ridiculous, yeah. And anyway, I refuse to sit at home and let basically the terrorists win. That's all we would be doing if we didn't fly.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
What terrorists?
Well, the terrorists who want to blow up the planes. I mean, quite frankly, if they want to blow up the planes that we want to travel on, paralyse the Earth, I'm not going to let that
No,
happen.
exactly.
Not on my watch.
See, that's what the terrorists want. They don't want us to have any fun. They want us to sit at home skulking and not go out. Well, I tell you, my stand against terrorism is I'm not going to do that. I'm going to fly to New York, and if there's another
some
hole
shopping.
in the
Yeah.
ozone layer,
Yeah.
so be it.
It's shopping for peace. If it's anything at all, that's what it is.
And Western Union.
George Parr, you are a junior minister at the Ministry of Defence.
Yes, I am.
The ministry has been severely criticised at recent inquests into the death of servicemen for not giving our armed forces enough support, particularly in terms of equipment.
I wouldn't call that severe criticism.
Well, the Deputy Coroner for Oxfordshire, Andrew Walker, who conducts most of these inquests, has called the behaviour of the Ministry of Defence unforgivable, unspeakable, a breach of trust. I mean, there must have been good reason for him saying all that.
Well, yes, I suppose there must. Perhaps he got out of bed on the wrong side.
But he has repeatedly accused the Ministry of Defence of what he calls serious failings.
Well, give me one example.
Well, I mean, there's a very well-known tragic example of Sergeant who was killed in the early days of the Iraq War because he didn't have any body armour and because the MOD hadn't supplied the troops with enough body armour. I mean, that's incompetence on your part.
That's quite the contrary. It's far-seeing policy.
Oh, is it?
Yes, from a geopolitical point of view. You see, what happened was this, that in 2003, just before the invasion of Iraq, the army wanted to buy 11,000 sets of body armour for the troops, and we said no.
You said no, why?
We didn't know, because it would look as though we'd already decided that we were going to war.
Which you had.
Yes, that's neither here nor there. It's how it would have looked that mattered.
Yes, but our troops are still running the risk of dying because of equipment failures, aren't they?
Look. Just let me say something about these brave young men and women.
Yes, yes.
They're incredibly keen. They want to be out there in Iraq and Afghanistan fighting.
Yes.
They certainly prefer that than staying at home in the shitholes we provide for them.
Cards on the table. What is the basic problem with our military equipment?
Well, the problem is, you see, that we're trying to fight two wars at the same time on a peacetime budget.
Yes.
And that's why Gordon Brown recently wrote to the defence chiefs telling them to cut from their budgets £17 billion over the next 10 years.
That's an awful lot.
It is a lot of money.
Yes.
But he also said they weren't to cut anything that might be politically embarrassing.
What do you think he meant by that?
Well, of course, it's very hard to know what Gordon means by anything. But, for example, we've decided, or we've almost decided, to abandon the order we made for 70 Westland Lynx helicopters.
Which would save you, what, about £1 billion. But what about these two huge new aircraft carriers you're going to order, which is £4 billion?
No, we're going to keep those.
But what the army desperately needs are helicopters, particularly in Afghanistan. What they don't need in Afghanistan are aircraft carriers. If only because it's 1,200 miles from the sea.
The difference is that the aircraft carriers are being built in Labour constituencies. Whereas the helicopters were going to be built in Yeovil, in Somerset,
Yes.
where the MP is a Liberal Democrat, and who cares about a Liberal Democrat?
But our troops, they still run the risk of being shot or having their legs blown off because they haven't got helicopter support. I mean, and yet you're spending all this vast sums of money on these other things. Can you justify that?
Well, we can't afford everything.
No, that's true.
Because, you see, we're spending £76 billion on replacing the Trident nuclear submarine system, and a certain amount of money spent on a 232 Eurofighter aircraft.
Well, all these things together will be about at least £100 billion.
Yes, but that's only as much as Northern Rock.
Yes. What are they for, these aircraft carriers and jet fighters and submarines? What are they actually for?
Look, that's obvious.
Is it?
It's to fight a war with Russia. It's the only thing they could possibly be for.
But who in the military or indeed in the government thinks there's going to be a war with Russia?
Nobody.
But according to the Deputy Coroner for Oxfordshire, then you're saving bits of money on things like body armour and tank maintenance equipment and tracking devices which will prevent friendly fire incidents and £50 radios, and you will still go on getting criticism from him for serious failings.
No, we're doing something about that.
Are you something concrete?
Yes, very concrete. Yes, on March the 17th, Des Brown went to the High Court and asked them to ban coroners from criticising the MOD.
Oh, well, that's one way of solving the problem. And what happened?
We got thrown out.
No. So what are you going to do now?
Well, there are other things we can do. There's going to be a counter-terrorism bill before Parliament very, very shortly.
It's very controversial.
Yes, and we've inserted 3 new clauses in that bill which will give the Home Secretary the power to hold military inquests in private, without a jury or the press, and with a judge and lawyers vetted by the government.
On what grounds can the Home Secretary do this?
Well, on the grounds of national security, relations with other states, and, I quote, any other public interest.
So that covers everything?
Exactly, it does, yes. Yes.
And what has this got to do with counter-terrorism?
Nothing.
Nothing.
No, but the MPs will be so het up about the 42 days nonsense, they won't notice these things going through.
No. But so you will still get the criticism, though, won't you, from Andrew Walker, the coroner?
No, Andrew Walker is no longer going to be adjudicating in military inquests.
Why? How is that?
Well, the reason is that the dead soldiers' bodies were always brought back to RAF Bryce Norton in Oxford.
Which is in his jurisdiction.
Yes, in his jurisdiction. Well, we've decided now to close RAF Bryce Norton in order to resurface the runway.
Well, now you're making this up.
No, I'm not. No, the dead bodies are now going to RAF Lynham, where, of course, there'll be a completely different coroner.
Yes. So you won't get criticised anymore.
Well, except you can't trust bloody judges, can you? But, if all else fails, we'll fly them back to Heathrow, where they'll almost certainly get lost.
Great stuff. Thank you very much.
I am so sorry about this meal.
No worries.
It's terrible. There is no main course for
like
a
cheese.
reason.
I like
know,
cheese.
but bread and cheese. I'm mortified. I am absolutely. And we did have a main course. Mark was good enough to employ the services of a cook.
Yes.
Oh, very good.
But she was a young, uppity miss, opinionated, and
But that isn't why I employed you, darling. I employed you because you're such a terrible cook. I mean,
Well-
that's the bottom line.
I'm sure you're not.
but I thought that it was all solved because we had this girl in. Well, to listen to the lecture about how many years she'd studied this, that, the other. To cut a long story very short, it ended in an unseemly row, and she threw the rule out at the wall.
it's a
At the right at the
disgrace.
wall.
I lament the fact that, in Edwardian times, for example, it was every normal middle-class family had servants. I lament it so much.
Live-in servants.
Live-in servants. It was no big deal. You never had to cook and clean and things like that.
No, and also in Edwardian households, there were these, what were they called, the maids? The
Tweeny maids.
Tweeny maids.
Tweeny maids, yes. Oh, and their little caps.
Little caps, and when they met you in the corridor, they'd curtsy, and And apart from laying the fires, they also had another role, which was to introduce the young men of the house into the mysteries of sex.
Exactly, so they multitasked. The first multitaskers.
The thing about all these people, I mean, they're not servants, are they? They're not staff. They're the experts. They're
Oh, yeah, look at the cook.
The cook,
You
the
can't
roulade
boss-
against the wall.
You can't boss these people around. You can't even ask them to do anything. I mean, they are telling you what to do.
Yes,
It's
the British really don't want to be servants.
They don't.
They don't have
They hate-
the mindset.
they hate
for
being
it.
servants.
And nowadays, of course, they're not civil.
No.
They say every other
Yeah,
word.
yeah.
They say, if you want your lavatory
Yes.
unblocked, you better do it yourself.
No, I couldn't
That's
agree
the
with
kind
you.
of
I know,
attitude.
it's disgusting. You see, in Victorian times, these middle-class families, if they fell on hard times, for example, they could send one of their girls into service, and you know that she'd be nice and
Well-bred,
well-bred and
yeah.
well-mannered.
Yes.
I mean, now, these days, you don't get that. They're all chavs. They swear all the time. They're binge drinking all the time.
Vomit in the gutters.
Vomiting all the time.
Yes.
They fiddle the welfare state. They're wily, and they know how to buck the system, and they know the rules, so they get lippy, and they go, I don't do toilets. I don't do cobwebs. I don't stand on step ladders. I don't stretch.
No.
I mean, what's the point of having a cleaner
It's intolerable.
when they're laying down those sorts of
Absolutely
rules?
intolerable. I had a plumber. I called him to the house, and he said, I make this clear, I don't do shit. Exactly. It's like Plato saying, I don't do philosophy. Sorry.
But what is the answer? What are we to do about this? Who can we get?
I know.
Eastern Europeans are the ones.
The Poles?
The Poles.
Oh, they will
Poles
do
are very
anything
good.
for
They'll
you.
do
it.
Absolutely anything.
The only thing about that is you have to be careful because some of them are overqualified. We had this man come to do gravel our drive.
Oh,
Yeah.
Very nice man, sort of 40 years old, but it turns out he'd been professor of economics at Krakow University.
Really?
Well, he's fascinating. We used to sit and have very interesting conversations about, reorganisation of the World Bank. But on the other hand, he didn't get much gravelling done.
This is the problem, though, Matthew. I told you at the time, you shouldn't have been intimidated by them.
Well-
And they're very easy to employ, the Poles. You just have to absolutely make sure they can't speak English. Those are the ground
Then
rules.
how do you communicate?
Yes, that's a problem. Are you going to run around with a phrase book and just reading
Well,
from
that
the
wouldn't
phrase
be
book?
any good,
It's
no.
confusing.
I mean, I've seen these press books.
I mean, it wouldn't be in the phrase book, would it?
They wouldn't. It would just say, could you show me the way to the Chopin Museum?
Yeah.
Or, I don't know, these sausages are inedible.
Yeah.
One of the advantages of employing Estonians and Poles and so on is they're not black. I mean, not that I've got anything against black people,
Yes.
but I mean, you don't have that sense of guilt.
No, you
ordering
don't have
black
a guilt,
people around.
and they don't suck their teeth, and they don't play hip-hop in the kitchen.
When you talk about having servants, but the Georgians, in the Georgian time, the Victorians, I mean, when they built houses, they built them knowing that the people they're going to live there are going to have servants.
Lived
so
in,
they
yes.
have the little pokey rooms on
That's
the top floor.
very true.
Now, all our little
Very
pokey
true.
rooms have been knocked through, and they're all now storage for Lucy's shoes.
Well, shoes in, I have to have a dressing
So where,
area.
yeah, so where do you put your?
Well, I think it only needs ingenuity, doesn't it? And a good architect. In the war,
people used to have Anderson shelters
Oh, yeah,
in
dig
their
them- dug them out,
gardens
dug
in
them out.
case the Luftwaffe came
Yeah.
over and dropped bombs. The Poles could live in one
Oh,
of those.
they would love it compared to
in one of
Poland.
those.
They would be so
Yes.
grateful. Yes.
And if the
They'd
Luftwaffe
be
came along,
delighted.
they'd remember that from
Yeah.
their experiences during later.
Isn't that really why we must love Europe and embrace it? I mean, being European now as we are, we can have that. The possibility is there that we could have that system, and that is what I love Europe
Exactly.
for.
You're absolutely right.
Yes.
Let's drink to Europe.
Yes,
To Europe.
Eastern Europe in the
Eastern
garden.
Europe, absolutely.
Is it just an ordinary plastic bag?
And a blowtorch.
So how did he work it out?
Well, I suppose it was trial and error.
He's never had any dandruff since. That's absolutely astonishing.
Yes, I know.
God.
Oh, I know what I meant to tell you.
Yeah.
I've just won £1 million on my premium bonds.
What? What, £1 million?
Yes. It was the jackpot. Mr. Patel told me yesterday.
Well, Mr. Patel at the post office.
Well, how many other Mr. Patels are there in this village? Yes, Mr. Patel in the post office.
That's incredible. I mean, congratulations.
Well, I didn't do anything. You know, it was just luck.
Yes.
But the important thing is how I spend the money.
Yes. Yes, well, I suppose you've got the chance now to buy the house for your son and daughter-in-law. you know.
Well, I thought about the house, but then, you know, I thought, no, that would be a very selfish thing to do.
Really?
Yes. I mean, I want to spend this money on higher purchases. When I'm on my deathbed, I want to look back and think I made a difference.
Yes.
You know, I contributed something to society.
So what are you going to spend it on?
Well, I thought I'd buy a peerage. Because, you know, when I'm a peer, I will be a shaker.
A mover and a shaker.
A mover and
A mover and a shaker.
a mover and shaker. I will. And, you know, people will sit up and they'll take pictures.
There's a lot to be said for the old feudal system. I mean, the old squire, when he was here, I mean, he was a unifying factor. He was a focus for the whole village,
Yes,
you know.
yes, he was.
It's not been the same since he ran off with the postman.
No, he was someone that everyone could look up to.
Yes. Or she, as it turned out to be after the operation. Yes. I miss seeing the old squire striding through the village in his twin Seton pearls.
But you see, I could become the focus of the village because, you know, if I get my title, then I could be the new squire, couldn't I?
Yes, but it can't be that easy, buying a peerage. I mean, you don't know anybody in the political world. You haven't got any contacts.
Now, there is where you make your mistake, you see, because at the Labour Party conference last week, they put out an advert. I got it here, where, you know, you can meet ministers and MPs in return for some cash.
Really?
Yes. Yes.
No, I missed that. Well,
Oh no, I've got it here. You can have dinner with Stephen Timms, meeting with Caroline Flint, drinks with Lord Faulkner, breakfast with Kevin Barrow, dinner with Richard Caborn, and dinner with Nick Brown.
oh, really?
Yes.
I think sorry. Well, who are these people?
Well, they're ministers and MPs.
Richard Caborn. He's the Minister of Sport, isn't he?
Yes, that's the one. Yes, he is.
I mean, £1 million seems a lot to spend to have dinner with him.
No, Leslie. No. No, the £1 million is for the peerage.
Oh, sorry. Yes.
But
yes.
you see, you have to start by spending £1,500 to meet these people.
Yes.
You meet these people, and then they give you Lord Levy's telephone number.
Yeah. Right.
And that's how democracy works.
Yes. I see. But of course, when you're a lord, you'll have some influence on local issues too, won't you?
Well, yeah, I
I
suppose
mean, the first thing you could do is to move the bus stop to outside my house. so that Audrey doesn't have to walk so far with the shopping.
No, Leslie, no. I'm not going to use my position to grant favours for personal friends.
Well, what's the point of it then?
No, it's a higher purpose. You see? Oh, and the logical place for the bus stop is obviously outside my house. What I shall do is to take my seat in the House of Lords, and then I shall start a campaign.
What for? Campaign for
A
what?
campaign against corruption in public life.
So when do you get the money?
I don't exactly know that.
Well, you've checked the numbers of the premium bonds, have you?
No, I haven't. No.
Well, has Mr. Patel checked the numbers?
No. No.
Well,
but-
how do you know you've won the...
well, because Mr. Patel knows this astrologer in Karachi. They call them swamis.
Swamis?
And, yes, and the Swami wrote to Mr. Patel and said, the person in your village who has this birth date is going to become immensely wealthy this month. And it was my birthday.
It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
It's not ridiculous, and I'll prove it to you. Because the Swami, before Mr. Patel left Karachi, he predicted that Mr. Patel's destiny would be to run a newsagent in England. Now, explain that if you can.
Is it in any way a barrier to communication?
Look, I'm sorry. I know I've been really quiet tonight, but the problem is, I'm finding it very difficult to eat because, everything has to go, up and under the veil.
Yes. Well, it can't be easy.
But it is the first time I've tried it, so maybe that's easier.
You just wanted to know what the fuss is about, didn't you?
Absolutely,
About
absolutely.
the veil, and wanted to know what it felt like to be in the shoes of a Muslim woman.
Or in the
I think it's
headdress of
terrific.
a
Only for a couple of hours.
Oh, I mean, obviously, yes, but that is so wonderfully multicultural, isn't it? Yeah.
What's that you're wearing?
Oh, listen, we talked about this on the phone. Do you remember I told you I was coming as a Christian this evening? Yeah?
Well, not all night, I hope.
Oh, God, no. It's Friday. It's our sex night.
Yes.
Well, it's quite exciting, but I wouldn't wear it outside, obviously, because I'd get spat on.
Oh,
Yes.
sure.
That's the easiest way to get bird flu.
Exactly.
I mean, what interests me something is whether it makes you feel different on the inside, and also I've never grasped how attractive your eyes are.
It's actually, neither had I, to be honest with you. I'd always thought they were a bit piggy, really.
No, you see, this is one of the unique selling points about this, right? All you need is a little bit of shadow, some kohl, nice and defined with the eyes. I don't now need my moisturiser, my foundation, my lip liner, my blusher, my gloss, and that is the beauty of Islam.
Of course, there's nothing to stop you wearing all that underneath if you.
No, of course not.
No.
But if you're in a hurry in the morning,
Yeah.
then you can dispense with that and just do the eyes.
Yeah.
And what I really like is that I know that every man looking at me is dying to know what I look like naked.
Well, I certainly do.
Oh, look, I'm sorry about this, but I can't stand it any longer. The food's one thing, but I've got to have a drink now, so I'm sorry.
Oh, right,
Bugger
will
it.
do. Look, there you are.
Ah, that's better.
Is that right? Does that make you feel more spiritual, having the cross?
I suppose.
I mean, I didn't know until tonight that she was a Christian.
Oh, you are.
No. Oh, God, no. Don't be ridiculous. No, it's just a joke.
God for that.
But I mean, to be serious though, isn't it true that, you know, it is for a lot of people, they'll wear something that defines them.
Their identity.
Exactly, their identity. Well, if I don't have an identity, I don't know who I am.
Yeah, you're
nothing.
nobody.
We're
Yeah,
nobody.
You
No.
know, it's-
Yeah,
I mean,
that's right.
Matthew, what do you think defines you?
Being grumpy.
Well, no, I've met much lots, but I suppose being old-fashioned, my old college time, my King's College, Cambridge time.
Oh, yes. They were a bunch of puffs.
Well, obviously what identifies me is my Armani
Yes, of course.
and my agent provocateur underwear, which
Yes, of
I
course.
love.
Of course, yes. For me, I suppose it's my gold Rolex. I mean, it's a late 40s one, but at least people don't want to chop off my hand to get it in.
Absolutely.
You know, so I suppose that's what defines me.
Yes.
And for me, well, I suppose it's the famine, really, isn't it? Yeah,
famine,
the
being
potato famine. Well, yeah, you know.
Because you're Irish.
Yes, I bring a potato with me everywhere.
Yes.
It's really the Rolex of the vegetable world, isn't it? Isn't it beautiful?
Do you carry,
In
you
my
carry
handbag
it with
at
you?
all times. It's my identity.
Every couple of months, I buy her a new one. Honestly. For me, identity-wise, I suppose if the government said, which I suppose they could, that I couldn't drive my Bentley anymore, well, I don't know what I'd do. I mean, I might become a suicide bomber.
Justification. I mean, there are limits.
Yeah, absolutely.
Darling, just put that thing on again and call me an infidel.
Here we go, darling. You are an infidel!
Oh, I love it.
This is such a wonderful multicultural evening, isn't it? Oh, thank you so much.
Shall we do Buddhism next time?
Oh, yes, I think we
Oh,
should.
yes.
At least you can be able to have a drink if you're wearing something like the Dalai Lama.
Oh, yes. Well, he drinks all the time, of course.
Apparently.
Yeah. George Parr, you are an investment banker.
Yes, I am.
Yes. And of course, we've just had an extremely serious banking crisis. And there are lots of people in the city, like yourself, who earn millions in salaries and bonuses. So, shouldn't you have seen this coming?
Well, it is true. We didn't actually foresee it in the strict sense of the word.
Or in any sense of
Or
the
in
word?
any sense of the word. No, we didn't foresee it, but when it happened, we did notice it. Which is almost as good, isn't it?
Well, we just had the first run on a bank in this country for 140 years. You know, you're a banker. What is your reaction?
Well, of course, everybody in banking, we all felt deeply embarrassed.
You're embarrassed.
Embarrassed, yes. I mean, I hardly dared take my Ferrari in for its service yesterday.
What are you going to do about it?
Well, what can I do about it? The bloody thing needs a service. I've only got 2 Ferraris.
Yes, but I mean, what was the cause of this?
Oh, it was about the banking crisis. Well, of course,
Yes.
it wasn't my fault. It wasn't banking's fault. It was entirely the fault of Mervyn King.
But he's just put £10 billion into the banking system.
Yes.
Isn't that what you were asking for?
Yes, but it's done it far too late, you see. I mean, nobody wants it anymore. You should have done it much earlier, because it was obvious that the Northern Rock was getting into difficulties. It was obvious that most people in the city were borrowing too much and lending too riskily.
Including you.
Well, I was just doing what everybody else was doing. That's how we operated in the city. And what I want to know is, why didn't he do it earlier? Why wait until the entire banking sector looked as stupid as it actually was?
So what you're saying is that although Mervyn King might not have been able to prevent the crisis, he could have prevented the spectacle of people queuing up in the high street to try and get their money out.
Exactly.
Yes, and people were queuing at 2 o'clock in the morning.
2 o'clock in the morning, yes. I mean, the British people have only ever done that for Tim Henman, and look how badly that always turned out.
But these scenes must have been humiliating for the banking industry.
We don't like to see it. It makes us look silly.
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 What about the banks falling over themselves to pick up these packages of dodgy mortgages, and they have very little idea how much they're worth, if they're worth anything at all?
Well, that's not silly. That's a sophisticated market in operation.
So you don't think there is anything fundamentally wrong with the banking system?
Look, there are some very, very clever men in the city. I mean, just an example, the fact that Alliance and Leicester lost a third of its value in a day, and the very next day got a third of its value back, that shows the system is fundamentally sound and rational.
Yes, but can you explain why, at the beginning of the Northern Rock crisis, the government made an offer which didn't reassure the public? The Chancellor of the Exchequer himself said people shouldn't worry because their money was perfectly safe.
Well, that's very simple. The public are used to the government telling them lies.
You mean if the government is prepared to tell lies about the reason for invading another country, they wouldn't be too bothered about lying about people's money?
People's money, no, exactly. What Alistair Darling should have done was to say to everybody, go down to Northern Rock now, take every last penny out. You see? People have said, well, there must be some reason the government's telling me to take my money out. I'm going to leave it where it is.
And then the whole thing might have just sort of faded away.
It's gone blown up. Well, it should never have happened in the first place. I mean, it was only because some bright spark said, how much do you think these American houses are actually worth? And of course, as soon as they asked that question, we all panicked.
Because you found out?
No, we didn't find out. We still haven't found out how much they're worth, if anything.
Despite what you call a very, very sophisticated market.
Look, we went on the assumption that property values always go up.
Well, that's not very sophisticated, is it?
It's as sophisticated as we ever get.
Yes, but I mean, why, if this is the case, and that's what happened, every time you sell someone a financial product, you put a big warning on it saying, well, your investments may go down as well as go up.
Yes, well, we have to do that. It's one of the pettifogging regulations, but it's only meant for ignorant punters.
So it doesn't apply to you?
Certainly not, certainly not. And of course, the punters themselves are now reassured because the government have guaranteed their deposits.
Yes, and also put £10 billion into the banking sector.
Yes,
Do you
yes.
think that was absolutely necessary?
It was necessary as a symbolic gesture because what the market needs is confidence.
Whose confidence?
My confidence. The confidence that I have a 35-room house to go to with 6 cars in the garage and a private helicopter, and that I'll earn enough from my Christmas bonus to pay my Filipino staff £12 a month.
But these are huge sums that we're talking about here. I mean, where in the end is all this money going to come from?
Well, I don't know wherever governments get their money. Taxation, I suppose. I don't know anything about tax. I never pay any.
But don't you think it's wrong that extremely rich people that run, I don't know, private equity funds, and people like you, hardly pay any tax at all?
There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. The city is far too valuable to the British economy. In any case, as we keep saying, if you tax us, we'll just go abroad. And that is not an idle threat. We can go and wreck somebody else's financial system.
Finally, can we talk about moral hazard?
But what, sir?
Moral hazard?
No, so I know what hazard means. What's the other word?
Oh, never mind. The point about moral hazard is that the thought is that executives, like yourself, will go on making more and more stupid and more risky loans in order to put up the profits of their bank, because when everything goes wrong, the Bank of England is going to come along and bail them out.
Well, I certainly hope so. I'm looking forward to it.
Look, I don't want to be insulting, but it does seem to me that you haven't learned anything from this whole episode.
On the contrary, I've learnt one very important lesson.
And what is that?
And that is, if you're going to make a cock-up, make sure you make it an absolutely enormous cock-up, because then the government will bail you out. George Carr, thank you very much.
That's completely wrong.
Really, I mean, David Cameron has no idea.
He does have an idea. He likes marriage. He approves of
That's
that. Now,
true.
that could be a vote catcher.
No, but
in
that's
these
the
days.
problem, Mary. He likes marriage so much. He's always slobbering all over his hideous wife. It's repulsive. What's her name? Tabitha or something?
Samantha.
Oh, well, I mean, that is the problem, you know. You think they're going to rip each other's clothes off, and any minute they're going to kind of get down with the Congress of the Duck or
Oh,
something.
please,
It makes me
please,
think like that with
please,
the children. I mean, Samantha, Jesus Christ.
No, all I'm saying is that not having an idea can be a huge benefit.
Did you know that you can buy a pencil case in her shop, this Tabitha Samantha creature, that costs £7,000?
Yes.
Did you read that?
case?
Yep.
A pencil case, yeah?
These have pencils in it.
No, pencils.
Buy
Sorry,
pencils extra.
honestly, I'm trying to make a very important point.
Yeah, sorry, come on.
Oh, hurry it up, sweetie. We're all dying.
No. The great advantage of David Cameron not having any ideas
Yeah.
is that if he did, they'd be more than likely completely the wrong ones, and then he'd have to get some more.
Such a practical
But surely, I mean, he should at least give us some sense of how you deal with, you know, the credit crunch. Or the,
No, that would be absolutely fatal.
Yeah.
Because then it will be clear to everyone that he hasn't got the faintest idea how to deal with
You
it.
see, here's the thing. He does have an idea because he agreed with Gordon Brown, whatever it
That
was,
was the
3
idea.
weeks ago. Because 3 weeks ago, Gordon Brown saved the world,
No,
didn't he?
no. Gordon Brown's a complete and utter prat. Everybody's agreed about that.
No, that was 4 weeks ago. 4 weeks ago now. And then, you know, something happened. I think it was a Tuesday. And Gordon Brown became the wisest leader in Europe.
the wisest leader in the world. I think.
Was it the world? It was the world. Yeah.
I don't think it was a Tuesday.
No, I agree. It would have been a Tuesday because it's my Pilates class and I would have remembered.
No, it was a Wednesday.
No, because he was a complete prat again come Wednesday.
That's right.
But he was the wisest leader in the world for nearly a week.
Yes, well, you see, and that was when David Cameron agreed with him. Because, I mean, let's face it, if somebody is the wisest leader in the world and you don't agree with them, then you're just going to look like
You look a
stupid.
It must have been a Monday because by Thursday Cameron was saying it's all Gordon Brown's fault, the whole thing, and everybody agreed with that.
Yeah, the point there was that when we were staring into the abyss, we all had to pull together.
Yeah.
But as soon as the abyss eased off a bit, then he could go back to attacking...
Hammer and tongs.
Politicians are all saying this, and the implication is that party politics is completely irrelevant if the situation is serious.
Yeah.
And the only time we can have party politics is when it doesn't matter. It doesn't say much for our political system.
No, but I mean, the point surely is that it would be disastrous if David Cameron had an idea, especially about the financial situation. What he's got to do is to behave as though somehow, I mean, don't ask me how, at some unspecified time in the future, he might possibly have an idea.
The obvious tactic, isn't it, for the Conservatives? They keep completely quiet and let Labour throttle themselves. But the odd thing was that, if you remember, in 1997, Tony Blair, he was saying, this Conservative government is completely discredited, and by the way, we're going to keep its policies for the first 2 years. And now Cameron is saying exactly the same thing about Labour.
Yes. That's what I don't understand. Why don't they just stick with that? Why don't they just stick with the policies for the 4 years?
The whole 4 years.
Yeah, for the whole 4 years.
No, well, at least there'd be a bit of a virtue and some consistency.
That's right. And, you know, all that would happen would be the usual, you know, that whoever becomes Prime Minister, I mean, at first they're insanely popular, and then somewhere along the line they become a complete arsehole, and then they just swap over.
And just whatever.
You know,
The same policies.
Absolutely, and then you wouldn't have the arguments about the same policies because it would be all the same. Do you see?
Exactly.
You know, I think we're going to get through it. I think it's going to be all okay because I just really think it's newspapers and television, isn't it? Just, you know, they love all the doom mongering, stoking it up. You know.
I don't agree. I think that's far too optimistic.
Really?
Yes, because I think that we are on the cusp of a catastrophic disaster.
No, I'll tell you why I think that can't be true. Let's look at somewhere like Zimbabwe.
Yes.
Okay? You know, there couldn't be a greater disaster than there.
Yes.
Could there? And yet they still stutter along, don't they?
More than stuff.
They're motoring
With
along.
inflation, they've got 14 million%. I can't imagine that.
No, I understand what that means, right? You know, if I say, for example, I want to go and buy a pair of shoes in the morning,
Yeah.
and then I meet my chum for lunch and we have a glass of wine or whatever, I then go and pick them up in the afternoon and they're 14 million times more than they were in the morning. I mean, I think I have to admit that I would absolutely have second thoughts about buying.
God, we hope so.
I'm telling you. I suppose, you know, the point I really want to make is that when you see Robert Mugabe on television, and inevitably, you know, he's banging on about, let's, you know, kill somebody horribly, murder them who's in opposition, and so on and so forth, he is always impeccable. Isn't he? I mean, and particularly the shirts. Oh, you know,
handkerchief.
freshly laundered, crisp as you like. Now, my point is this: that shirt will have to have gone to the laundry and been paid for.
You're absolutely right.
He's got Swiss bank accounts. He's got proper money in there.
All right. You know, let's look at the power sharing conferences that they've got, right? And there are all these Zimbabwean chaps putting out, you know, the glasses and the water and whatever, and they are all in beautifully pressed, beautifully laundered shirts.
Yes.
Don't tell me they've all got Swiss bank
I
accounts.
agree
They
with you,
couldn't have.
Mary, and not only that, but it's also the opposition people as well. I mean, it's, you know, what's his name? Morgan Tsvangirai. Well, I mean, he's getting beaten up all the time, right? And quite
Constantly.
badly, actually, they say sometimes. So he'll be full of blood. But I'm sorry, every time you go to a new meeting and on television, he looks immaculate. So their dry cleaning bills must be through the roof.
That's right.
But he's always impeccably turned out.
Yeah, and they always are back the next day for the next meeting. So it shows that somehow aspects of the economy are still working.
Absolutely fine.
Yep.
Absolutely fine.
I mean, the problem is here. What's going to happen to us? I mean, the four of us could end up with no money. No money. Now, just
What do you
think
mean?
about
It's unthinkable.
that. No
Well,
money.
Matthew, I thought that you'd put all of our money into an Irish bank where it's supposed to be guaranteed.
But don't you have to be Irish to do
No,
that?
darling, I have explained this to you. You don't have to be Irish.
You don't?
No, well, look, all of the Irish birth records burnt during the Civil War, so all you have to do is say
Yes, pretend you're Irish.
the only thing you need is an Irish grandmother.
And you can get those on the internet.
Very simple.
You don't even need an Irish accent, do you?
Not at all, not at all. No.
I mean, to my mind, an Irish bank and security is just a contradiction in itself.
Oh,
I mean,
here
the
we go.
government,
Here we go.
the government can guarantee deposits until they're blue in the face, but it doesn't mean that the Consolidated Bog Trotters Savings Union is going to be any safer than the bookie on the corner.
Sweetheart, I have asked you not to call it that in front of people, all right?
but
And incidentally, the bookie on the corner is Irish as well.
I thought it was all guaranteed.
No. I mean, if you're the big financial brain, what are you doing with your money?
Well, I'm putting my money offshore.
But I mean, this is a globalised world. There is no offshore. Everything is linked together. That's the trouble.
Well, you know what I've been pondering, and quite heavily actually. I think that we should put all our savings in Mars.
I'm not giving your mother any more of my money. You understand?
No, Mars.
Well, the planet.
In the sky.
Yes, you just give all your money to Richard Branson. He puts it in one of his rockets, right? And then you just whisk it off up to Mars. And even if it doesn't get to Mars, it's much safer in the orbit, just circling around.
The North Koreans could shoot it down. North Koreans, have these anti-satellite missiles.
Don't start me about the bloody North Koreans. They make me furious beyond words. They just want to ruin everything for everybody.
Killjoys.
Bloody North Koreans.
Killjoys.
Well, all I'm prepared to say is that I wouldn't let a penny of my savings within 100 miles of Richard Branson.
What's going to get us out of this hole, if anything ever does, is politics. We've got to find a political leader who can grasp the situation by the scruff of the neck and show some vision. The question is, who?
Exactly.
Because obviously, David Cameron.
Exactly.
Because he's got the look. No, he's got it just right. He's always in a nice suit, a lovely shirt, the hair. He's got the whole thing going.
It's perfect, isn't it? And he looked great on that beach.
Oh, you're absolutely right. I mean, he just, that was such a coup de théâtre when he
that's
did
right.
those shorts.
He nailed it.
He nailed the zeitgeist.
Yes, he absolutely nailed it. Whereas Clegg, Nowhere.
Oh, no,
Nowhere.
absolutely hopeless colour-wise.
No.
Absolutely hopeless.
Very, very superficial judgment. All we need to find a political leader who can to show some dynamism, you know, who can give us some sense of hope in the future, who can break the mould.
Do you think Brown can do
I
that?
think Brown, well, not only can do it, but I think he did do it at the
When?
Labour Party conference, the very moment, that this was a crucial moment in British politics, that Sarah Brown came on stage and introduced him.
And,
Yeah.
and he kissed her.
Yes,
He kissed
and that was the moment that everything changed
It was
after that.
horrible.
Everything changed politically.
But the problem is, you know, where is this political guidance? I mean, who are these people who are supposed to be telling us how we get along in this country?
Again,
I mean, it's not Gordon Brown, is
Yes,
it?
I think it is,
How?
because Gordon, well, because he's already done it. He, at the Labour Party conference, he came up with something which was, if anybody had noticed it, would have been really inspiring, which would have actually laid down political discourse for the next 20 years. He did it in 6 words.
What? I didn't hear them.
6 words.
What were they?
All right, they were, insulate your loft for half price. I mean, that
That is
is the
6
21st century equivalent of man is born free but is everywhere in chains. It's big,
But, you know,
big.
You could be right. This could be something concrete at last. I mean, you know, if the whole nation was laying polystyrene in their attics, I mean, it could just
I
rally
suppose
people.
it could be like, you know, it was in the war, in the bomb shelters and everything.
Yeah, but the trouble is that you won't be with all the others in the bomb shelter. You'll be alone in the rafters, and you won't be singing "Roll Out the Barrel." will you?
No, darling, look,
It's very
I'm,
easy to sneer.
I'm going to say it, and I mean this. If it's for the good of society, then I, for one, am prepared to have my loft insulated.
Yes, I suppose. I mean, you know, an Armani shirt versus lagging your pipes.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's the political
We
divide.
already have insulated the loft, my darling.
No, then just rip it out and have it all done again.
No,
Because it's
well-
free.
Well, no, that's not actually free for people like us. We have
What
to
do
pay
you mean?
half price. Well, there are certain groups for whom it's
Why?
free.
Who's
well,
it free?
People on low incomes, people on housing
Oh,
benefits.
please, not shake hands.
They've got to be helped.
Why?
Why?
Why do they have to be helped?
No.
Why do these people? I mean, we know who we're talking about. I don't have
Say
to.
it.
We know
Say
it.
it out loud,
Right, the
sweetheart.
working class.
Yes.
The
Yes.
working class.
The bloody working
Bloody
class. This is for calling a spade
Yes.
a spade. And while we're at it, it's the bloody working class who started this meltdown of our finances in the first place.
Absolutely.
That's an exaggeration.
No, it's true. What you say is absolutely true because they wanted all these things that they couldn't afford.
Oh, yes.
You see, and they have no thrift about them. So what do? They borrow and borrow and borrow and borrow on more and more and more and more credit cards till it's absolutely catastrophic. And you know why they do this, don't you? Because they are incredibly greedy.
Greedy?
And they are even more incredibly thick.
Yes, please. Oh, please. You know, because, I mean, look at all of these buy-to-let
Yeah.
deals that they did. And they took on these huge mortgages that they couldn't possibly repay. And not only that, these people aren't fit to be landlords.
No,
they
they're
haven't
not
got.
landlords.
They haven't got the breeding.
No.
They're not like the Duke of Westminster or you know, that
No.
very clever landlord who got 12,000 a month off Ealing Council for those Afghans.
Well, that's true.
Thrifty.
Very.
Yes,
as well.
but you see, when the chickens come home to roost, these people,
Yeah.
they expect the government to bail them out.
That's right.
Don't they?
They do.
That's right.
I
They
think
do.
what would be very good for them, they should all spend a couple of years queuing in a soup kitchen and eating their own babies.
Yes, you're absolutely right. Show them a little bit of discipline because then, you know, then there would be no more binge drinking.
No?
Yeah.
There'd be no more stabbing. And they'd look up to people like us. Don't you think? Well, that shows a little bit of respect.
That's all we want. I am sick and tired, for one, of being elbowed off the pavement in Oxford Street. Sick and tired. I've had enough of it.
Intolerable.
You might be blaming the wrong people. What about the bankers? What about the people, the city boys who lent them the money in the first place?
But that's exactly the same point that I'm making.
That's right.
Because, well,
You tell
because these lower class oiks have moved into the banking game, haven't they? I mean,
In the last 10 years, if you go into a dealing room in the city, it's like going into a scene from Lock, Stock and Two Smoking Barrels. Now, in the past, when I had an appointment in the city, I know that I was going to meet someone very much like myself.
Yes.
And we'd sit and have a glass of Fino sherry and an arrowroot biscuit, and we'd converse about, how the shooting was the last weekend, and it was civilised.
Civilised, that's exactly
Now,
it, yes.
I'd be expected to have a view about whether Rooney or Giggs should play in the hole with Berbatov.
That's disgusting. Breaks his heart.
It does.
Breaks his heart.
And I have to say this, I know it doesn't sound very good, but I believe it's going to take an awful long time to turn this around.
Yes, I hear you, darling. I agree.
Think so.
And can I just say that in the meantime, we will have to sit there looking into this huge big black hole.
Black hole.
And, while our life as we know it changes utterly.
Yes, I know.
Utterly.
I know.
Well,
know.
look, what are we all going to do?
Well,
It's the end.
I used to go down to the old people's drop-in centre on Saturdays and do a bit of charity work. Well, I haven't done that for
Years.
well, 2 years
Yes,
anyway.
yes.
2 years, but I did actually go down on Thursday, and I must say, I found it a very uplifting experience. I found I was genuinely heartened by it.
Truly.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, what was it that moved you? I mean, was it, I don't know, the courage of the elderly, or, I don't know, their sense of humour?
No, it was the fact that looking around, I could see they were all completely in the shit. And I thought, well, at least there are people worse off than me.
That in the last few weeks there has been in the Labour Party an outbreak of what we psychiatrists